but the thing is, you're cutting our revenues with that, and honestly, we don't think we should need to cut our revenues that much, and we think the community can offer something.
Yo, Crypto Nation and mining family, what's going on? What up, what up? I see that we have a person in here. Awesome. Hey, what's going on? So today we're going to be talking, we're going to be sitting in on the Ethereum 1559 community call with some of the devs, with Bits Be Trippin', and community in a few of the pools, so hopefully you guys enjoy.
We do want the network to be secure in that time, but there's only so far that we can indulge proposals like that. In fact, the goal is eventually to move beyond it. So that's the first point. And I want to address Michael's point earlier, comparing this to other issuance elections in the past. And I certainly see the point there, but I think this is not equivalent to those kinds of changes. This is a coherent policy change that's designed to create greater certainty around ether supply. And within the market, especially among larger funds and investors, one of the points that they've expressed concern around for ether is that there is greater supply uncertainty versus rate. And we'll never really be able to address that most likely, because I don't think there will ever be support for a true hard cap. But this certainly helps to alleviate some of those concerns, because as long as Ethereum is a very widely used network, and if EIP 1.59 is implemented, that will help to keep supply in check. Either reduce net circulating supply, or it will basically limit the growth of the so I just wanted to
thank you. Also, we're going to just have no more hands up until after Q&A, because we only have a limited amount of time left. So no one else put your hands up until after I start Q&A, and then we'll start doing that. Doesn't mean take them down if we have them necessarily, but I think I have the order still. Next up, I think we have James.
Yep, I wanted to address the point of giving a lead time, or that miners need to be able to prepare for this change. And that this is something that's been in the works publicly for a long time. Even if today you are learning about it, you have at least 4 months to plan. And the last 3 months have been pretty heated discussion, or a lot of discussion among the community. And the first part was like 2 years ago, we did an implementation study when Vulcanized rigged it. And then that happened, and then last March, even we started development significantly again a year ago with a GitHub grants request, where we ended up pulling.
What's going on, Jimbo?
Grants that I think had happened up to that point.
Many blessings to you too.
And we restarted development at that time, and then we were saying it's probably 1 to 2 years before this comes in, and here we are, like a year and a half, and it's getting close. So there's been plenty of, I feel, public discussion and development of it coming soon.
Okay, Tim.
Just 2 quick points. I guess the first, this going a bit far about the A6 versus GPU discussion, but it's worth noting that, with regards to the point of A6 centralizing the network, there's already been several options brought up about, things that Ethereum could do if this became a problem. Compound was obviously a big one. 969 was brought up on this call. So I do think we are in a spot where, it's A6 are not a dominant part of the network today. If they became one and that caused a threat, I think we have a lot of approaches we could take to deal with that. And then the second point I just want to make is with regards to the idea that yes, miners are small businesses and there's more miners that came in. I think this is something I want to just stress that like the mining community that making profitability assumptions based on historically high transaction fees, historically high Ethereum to US dollar prices, and relatively low hash rate growth because of the GPU shortage. It's you're basically buying the top and you're coming in at like the peak of the bull market. It is an extremely risky business decision, and miners should be aware of that. It's also worth noting that the difficulty will adjust up and eat most excess profits in mining over time. And that 1559 is not the only thing that can impact the fees that miners receive from transactions. So for example, there's a lot of talk about the high gas costs right now and moving to layer 2. If there is a mass move of, say, most of DeFi to layer 2, the fees on the main chain will drop considerably, and that'll have a similar impact on miners' profitability. So TLDR is, it feels like it is a very frothy environment for mining. And yes, if we put 1559 through, or if we alleviate the congestion on mainnet with LP, mining rewards will drop significantly, and that will kick a lot of miners who are only profitable at kind of the most profitable period of mining off the network. And that's kind of by design. If we are overpaid and we lower that amount, then we become unprofitable, and then the miners who stay on have a lower difficulty to compete with, and they can be profitable network. I just wanted to put that.
Thank you. And then finally, Roger, before we move on to Q&A.
Oh, hi, yes. I just want to say again that we support the 1559, albeit that we felt that it could be a little bit moderated in terms of the reduction. And another comment is that the reason why ASIC has not really taken over like the Bitcoin BTC is because by design the Ethereum is a memory hard, which means
yes, Tech Man, that's the mining room door open.
Does not have that much.
Do I need to close it? I can close the mining room door. It's not a problem.
And a third comment is that because of things like QOW, power, and also the EIP 969, it's forcing us, like the ASIC manufacturers, to actually start thinking about putting GPU cores inside our ASIC in order to make us look more like a GPU and ASIC, like hybrid. So to overcome that obstacle. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Roger. Next up, we're going to go to Q&A. We have some questions from YouTube, Discord, and Reddit. Discord and Reddit questions were taken in previous days.
Bam.
Our Ethereum Cat Herders request for comments. First one, when does 1559 come into effect if it does pass?
Too funny. I thought those were your fans.
And I guess probably Tim or James is the best one to answer this.
Sure, I can take a quick stab at it.
Nice.
So on the next Encore Dev call, which is next Friday, we're going to discuss whether we want to include 1559 in the next upgrade, which should go live sometime this summer in probably July or August on mainnet. So if it gets accepted by the core developers, comments kind of went on about that across the beginning of the call, then it would go live on mainnet around say July.
Okay, thank you.
And a little point on that is that London will happen in July no matter what, because of the Ice Age. London will happen because of the Ice Age no matter what. But whether or not it includes soon after EIP 1559 or 1559 is in London is independent of that.
Got it. I thought you were setting a date for London, and I was about to be like, wait. Okay. Anyways.
No. The Ice Age is coming, and we for sure have to address that.
Yes, that is correct. Regardless of if 1559 goes in, we're addressing the Ice Age with London. Actually, that first question, when would it come into effect, was Fritz1818 from Reddit. This next question is from Bitcoin group user in Reddit. I would like to hear how burning 0.0001% of the supply every day will make the price rise enough to make up for 50% reduction in profits the miners will experience. they're talking about how it'll further centralize Ethereum, as will impact hobbyist miners significantly more than larger farms, negotiating lower electricity and hardware costs. Yeah, so I see some hands raised. If you don't want to respond to this, put your hand down. Otherwise, we will let someone respond to this. And actually, so yeah, who had their hand up first? So I'll just speak up.
Just roll the die.
Alright, let's do Thomas. I saw his hand go up first.
Yes, so I think that the argument of pricing being affected by the change of issuance, we're not saying it's true or not. It seems that it will be affected, obviously, because even if it's a small number, we have to discount all the future payouts. And also, we've seen recently that with the high gas prices, the transaction fees actually amounts to a significant part of the payments to miners. And so if you burn all of that, it becomes significant. But still, this is not the goal of the EIP 1559. EIP 1559 answers the problems of the short-term predictability of the prices and better user experience in picking the right payment for the transaction in any given time, and allowing the
Changes nothing with the
supply
transaction.
to be floating with more freely around that short-term demand shifts. So when you have sudden spikes due to some events in the network, the network will be able to accommodate to that. Also by expanding the blocks in the short term, so you may also see more supply when it's most needed.
High gas fees on high usage times is going to be the
We're
same.
gonna have Roger, then Tim, then Michael. Roger, feel free.
What's going on, Emmanuel?
We have Roger here. You're muted if you're speaking.
Hi. Yeah, I think I already made my statement. So
Oh,
I can move to the next person. Let me lower my hand.
no problem. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is relatively good point with the amount of total issuance that's already out there and then how much is actually going to get burned. I think it's more, this is going to be me putting on the marketing hat and kind of tapping my old Anheuser-Busch experience. I think the messaging that comes with certain activities when it's a heavy transaction time, let's say the last couple days we had 12 to 25 coin per block happening. There's a huge message that's going to happen with that when you start seeing that much being burned, when you have the typical block reward inflation being at 2, but then you burn 25. There's a huge amount in that particular transaction that I think the messaging, the bots that'll be on Twitter, the feedback loop from the investment, folks that are vested long on Ethereum are going to, use that to an advantage on a messaging. And that's not necessarily bad for miners too. Like, don't get me wrong that it's not all about yield and price. Any action that has that influence, if price goes up exponentially, even if yields go down, it's just a math problem. Either one swings. Right now we have both, right? We have price growth and we have yield growth, which is creating this rolling wave of new miners. If yields come down, but then they're being burned, that messaging I think that will come out as showing, $9, $10, $12 million a day being burned on heavy transaction times. Now that's still not really fixing the user experience, but that's what's still occurring. If you have huge amounts of transactions happening, costing the user a lot. But I think the messaging on the supply will be far outweigh the realities of the supply, even if it's going in a downward motion because of the amount of inflation over years.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to ask, this is the last question, so you can respond to whatever questions you wanted, but I assume that this next and final question
I would actually,
be like,
I would have just an addition to what Michael said, because this is a big thing that happened in Ethereum a few days ago, right? There was this one transaction that actually had 25 ETH block reward to miners. That is the transaction that Michael addressed. And I just want to briefly say that in this transaction, so the fees were that high because there were liquidation bots competing to liquidate positions on compound. Okay, so in this block, about 2 ETH of subsidy would have gone to miners, and about, let's say, 19 to 21 from the fees would have also gone to miners, because that is an MEV transaction, and only 2 to 3 ETH would have been burned in congestion fees. So that is actually the prime example of what part of the transaction is affected by EIP 159 and what
It's not.
to reiterate, most of these
Techman, it's not
transactions are
official
still
yet.
going to miners,
I think it's
way over
Friday. They
90%.
will be talking about
This
this.
actually brings me to the last question.
With the
which is a
devs.
related question. Someone asked, let me actually see who that was. I lost it. Anyways, why not stop MEV altogether via protocol level approvable transaction shuffling? MEV is the reason of the bad UX, and high tips will cause the same problem, is what someone said. And yeah, so who has a response to that? I think I saw Greg, Micah, and Georgia.
I do.
Greg, go ahead.
I'd just like to point out that that's exceptionally difficult. So the way that the EPM is designed today and the way that the whole system works today, many of us, myself included, some other people on the industry, would love to be able to wave a wand and have it work the way that's described in that question. But just from an engineering effort, it's exceptionally difficult to achieve that without, basically creating a whole new system.
Georgios?
Yeah, like to echo basically what Nick said, the problem comes from the fact that ordering and execution are kind of like both in the hands of the miners. And if there was a way to separate that, then sure. But doing this kind of separation is very hard, and it would require us to use like fancy cryptography, and we have no idea how to do that reliably today, while also letting users express their fee preferences. So the answer is yes, we can do it, but nobody knows how to do it well yet. So it's not something that we can answer fully today.
And you know what? We have an extra couple minutes. There's a really good question that Pooja put in chat from Crackling Ice on YouTube. Have fees been modeled based on how full the block is? What is the potential for reduction in fees? I think some of you have done an in-depth analysis and research on this. Does anyone have any comments? We can start with Rick and then Thomas. Oh, Rick, is your hand just still up from earlier? Okay, Thomas, and then Barnaby, if you want to chime in too. I know you had some extensive stuff over there.
Yes, I'll leave the research part to Barnaby, but yes, EIP 1559, at least in short term, it's all about this, about adjusting fees based on the how full the block is. What's the potential of decreasing the fees? All the research says that
Yo, what's up, Gandhi?
Does not decrease the long-term fees. This is only driven by the supply and demand on the block space. So maybe the part for the block is bigger because of the EIP 1559, which is a bit of a company change. Will decrease the fees, but momentarily, probably give more details.
Thanks, Hassan. Thanks for the chat so far. It's correct that EIP 1559 doesn't address the supply and demand issue that gives rise to the high fees that we see. That will be better done by scalability to all of this. But it's also important to keep in mind that another issue that we observe is the fees within a single block are very widely distributed. The variance of the fees is very high. So you have this basic uncertainty on how much you're supposed to pay. And you are also referring to oracles that tell you how much people have paid recently. So
nice.
You can create these kinds of bubbles where everybody is just overpaying continuously. And EIP 1559 by its design really breaks this cycle and tells, well, actually no, this is objectively what the congestion price currently is. Because that's what EIP 1559 is. It's a congestion pricing mechanism. It's also why MEV is out of the burning, let's say, it's out of range for this mechanism, because MEV isn't specifically congestion. What we really mean is that users want to use the chain, and it's not really about position, it's just about inclusion. And this is why EIP 1559 works always. This is why base fee target.
For sure, Gandhi, you
this
too.
is why congestion is actually not due to anyone, or if it is due to anyone, it's rather due to the users or the transactors who pay the price of congestion.
Okay, thank you, Barnaby. I think what we'll do now, we have 9 minutes left, and we have a handful of participants. We might just go to closing. What do you think, Pooja?
I think there was one question that is coming up related to hash rate and related to 51% attack. If somebody can talk about that.
Yeah, Micah said he can, if you want to read the question.
So the question is, if you put off 40 to 50% of hash rate and it comes back to 51% attack like we had in ETC, what will happen with ETH price once you have lost security of network?
So I can talk about the attacks. I am not a price speculator, so I won't try to speculate on the impact it would have on the price. So if 50% of the hash rate suddenly decides to all move to nice hash, for example, I think this is what Michael is getting at. If half the hash rate moves to nice hash, it creates an opportunity where someone can rent enough hash power to do a 51% attack. There's a number of them out there that you can do. And then with that, they do something bad. The reason this is particularly dangerous compared to other types of 51% attacks is because the people who are executing the attack have no long-term commitments. Whereas someone who's running a mining farm, for example, they have long-term commitments. Like if they burn down Ethereum, they burn down their own mining farm. So if they spent $1 billion on a mining farm and Ethereum goes to zero because they attack the network, then they lose that $1 billion investment because there's nothing else they can do with it. And so this is a very serious attack. Like if 50% of hash rate goes to nice hash, that is very dangerous for Ethereum. We should be worried and we should take immediate action to deal with it, because that is a very, very bad situation, because you can rent like an hour for 100K and do very bad things. So that being said, whether we hit 50% on nice hash or not is a speculative question that, again, I'm not going to speculate on where hash rate is going to go, but it is real attack. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think it is likely for 51% of hash rate to show up on nice hash tomorrow? And then on top of that, you have to ask, would it show up all at once, or would it show up kind of incrementally? If it shows up incrementally, Fortnite have an opportunity to do something about it. Like they can increase the block reward or do these other things we've been talking about to try to stop the hash power from moving to nice hash. So these are just things to think about when people are thinking about these attack vectors, is that like they are dangerous, but just keep in mind, how likely are they and how fast will they happen? Can we respond? Can we act quickly? Something like that.
In the essence of time, I'll give Michael 30 seconds and Thomas 30 seconds.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hit it already, Micah. The main piece that I'm tracking with it is that we're in a different time than we were 2 years ago. And even with the rolling wave of, possibly doing this in June, at the current exponential growth, we're going to be close to 700 terahash. If that comes off, people that are investing in that are going to be looking on how to, where the money's coming from. If there's a play for competitive network, not saying calling any networks out that somebody would do that, but somebody that's long in that position has every incentive in the world to have an issue, to create an issue for Ethereum. And this isn't theoretical things. This has happened to several other networks. Pretty much almost every proof of work, mining network out there. So I'm trying to ensure that people are taking it seriously, and then I think mathematically we can keep track of where things are at and how big of an impact it's going to be if this is put in June or July, where we're at in the stack, and if a block reward or something like that needs to be adjusted to lessen the risk. And that's all I'm looking for.
Okay, we're going to have Thomas take 30 seconds to respond to the question, and then each person on the chat is going to get 30 seconds or less to give just final statements on their position or whatever they want to say. If they want to shill anything, I don't care. And then we'll close out with Pooja and myself, and that'll be it. So Thomas, go ahead.
The amount of research testing and discussion that we bring in here, the amount of tooling that we build, both in the space of protocol engineering and DeFi, just shows that we do understand the importance of these risks, and we do monitor it, and it's nothing that is not being looked at and not being treated like proper consideration. So we have those tools, we do look at it, we understand those numbers, and we listen to you also raising those concerns. Sorry. I'm good.
Okay, no problem. Alright, let's go through the list. I'll call your name, and then you have 30 seconds or less. AFTAB.
Thanks, Hudson. I just want to close with the thought that from the discussions that I've had with folks, the user and app community are strongly in favor of EIP 15559, and it represents a profound improvement to user experience by providing reasonable guarantees of transaction inclusion, both for new and experienced users, and it creates conditions for economically hardening Ether, which I think would be very important for the long-term success of Ethereum and security as it moves through the network.
Okay. Next up, we have Barnaby.
Yeah,
just one of those saying the discussion was really amazing, and I do support the EIP 1559 for the improvement that it will bring. I really do believe that it will make the experience much more better for users, not only for users, but also it's been discussed for rollups. So the architecture of Ethereum in the future definitely needs 1559 to keep going and to be modern and to keep up.
Georgios?
Yeah, so firstly I want to point out a main takeaway from this discussion for miners based on the stuff that we've said, that MEV drastically changes the landscape. The fee revenue that you would lose is much lower than you think or have calculated and so on. And that I want to rehash the fact that miners are long Ethereum and the Ethereum economy, and as the Ethereum economy pie grows, so will your revenue. So you should consider the option which grows the Ethereum economy and not be myopic about the situation. Thank you.
Rick?
Yeah, I want to
Yeah, you cut price, the fees, you cut the fee down, but the price doesn't go up, then you're screwed.
It's their great opportunity, accumulating heat, to use that heat to stake and too, and I hope that they continue to participate in the Ethereum community and continue to explore the other opportunities. We expect that MEV will continue for some period of time, maybe even perpetuity on YouTube. So hopefully the miner community will find a way to transition.
Okay. James?
Thank you. Great job hosting this, Hudson.
Thanks.
I'm personally for EIP 1559. I've worked on it for a long time now, and for me, it's a better fee system, and a personal philosophy of mine is incremental improvements over time have exponential benefits, and that's me.
Micah?
If any miners would like to better understand how they can take a lot of money from DeFi users via MEV, please reach out to me on Discord. I will happily walk you through it. And also, if anyone wants to better understand the various attack vectors themselves, like on a technical level, again, reach out to me on Discord. I'm happy to talk to people about the mechanism design and of these attacks and how to launch them, etc.
Okay, Thomas?
Well, fully in support of what 1.59 and always willing to explain further, and also listening to all the concerns and taking them into consideration.
Trent?
I first became a miner on Bitcoin network in 2011 because of hobby, because I feel interesting, I feel excited. I switched from CPI code, and I keep mining for 2 years before create my own mining pool. For today's mining community will be paid deductively nicely by the network, but who cares about what they are paying, what they're paying them? Who cares for the miners? Who care about what about Ethereum future decentralization, or even our Earth, the climate change? And most of miners, they do not even know how to use a wallet. They never use the on-chain wallet, and they'll never have the know-how to have ever use a DApp or DeFi application. So I feel that all this stuff, EIP 1559 is organized by some small mining tools. It's just about money and the dirty money.
Okay, we got Tim.
So lots of people have said lots of good stuff already. One thing I'll say, it's been really interesting to me to hear from the different miner groups on this call, and to see like polls in favor, polls against, and also I guess from the ASIC point of view, which is not something we hear a lot about firsthand. Yeah, so I appreciate you all taking the time to come on this call.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I'm obviously for I think originally I was very against EIP 1559. I see the benefits. I've learned more as I've looked into it. I'm still concerned just looking at the growth of Ethereum and the opportunity that's out there for everybody that are not tracking these conversations, are not looking deeply that much into it, and are essentially YOLOing into the space because it's an opportunity there. I think that we need to keep an eye on if this is moving forward, that we take a pragmatic approach that we keep Ethereum safe. So if that includes just offsetting even one Ethereum per block reward, I think you mitigate and you take everything off my model that I have out there right now, which isn't a perfect model, it's just a model. You can help me.
What's up, Golden Wolf? What up, Unknown Crypto?
The network,
what up, Crypto Noob?
As long as there's an understanding and an
Martin, people are speculating the price of Ethereum, so they think that if they get rid of the fee, that the price will go up.
In an amount, I think that makes Ethereum go long and secure. I think the mining community.
Oh, you're hearing my one rig back here, Martin.
Thank you, Chris.
So what's happening with 1559? Miners generally support all the improvements. It's just that we're being asked to make. Basically, part of the community is asking another part of the community to make a giant sacrifice for 1559. So, what miners are saying is that it's important that you understand we have concerns, and we're asking for things from the community too. We believe that over time, this community will adjust to bring miner rewards to nominal. But however, the current modeling shows that it will not generate a security risk of approaching POS. If it stays on an unmolested trajectory. So we believe that you have a large pool of non-profitable hardware here, and that non-profitable hardware is going to be incentivized prior to POS to attack. And since many of us GPU miners are moving on to 2.0 and we're all planning to stake, we believe there's a risk to Ethereum by not passing 969 here. And we think that if 59 passes, we should also have something that we've been trying to push for all this time past to try to balance it out a bit. And you've seen with the 1559 sign up, you have 90% of hash rate by pools who are not pro 1559. So you're pushing into this, and you might push 159, and suddenly you're left with only one pool mining Ethereum because every other pool has not said they are going to join you on this. So we would much rather prefer a compromise where we both get what we want. Miners agree to take a cut, but not as much as the cut as you're proposing. And in return, you pass something that we've tried to push for a long time.
Thank you, Chris. Roger, finally.
Oh, hi, yes. I just want to say that we are a strong believer in Ethereum. And that is why we made a large investment to build the ASIC around it. Currently, we don't represent a large portion of the hash rate. And in terms of 1559, we do support the idea, Also, we are hoping that the approach can be a little bit more moderated. But whatever the community decides, we will support it. And we also hope that we and also our customer can continue to participate in mining as ASIC miners. So that's what I want to say.
Okay, and I was incorrect. Last was not Roger. It's going to be Hasu. I'm pretty sure. Is that the last one? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Hudson. So, so EIP 1559 will lower miner revenue, and that's why we are kind of having all this debate about it in the first place. But Ethereum exists to serve users and holders, and those holders are currently overpaying for security. And it is, of course, within our right to lower what we spend on security. And that's what EIP 1559 achieves. It is not one part of the community asking another part of the community for a favor. This is simply not true. And second, we have plenty of empirical evidence that if we lower miner revenue, it does not affect security. We have seen many Bitcoin halvings, and we have seen many crypto bear markets that are not 10 to 20 to 30% declines in revenue, but that are 90 to 95% declines in revenue over way longer periods of time. So, in my opinion, there's no ideological argument and no practical argument against including EIP 1559 in the London hard fork without further changes. That said, thanks everyone for the discussion.
Yes, we're going to have Pooja, if you want to have 30 seconds for anything Cat Herders related and anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, just be fun with. It's so great to see researchers, developers, EIP authors, and miners together on one call. Organizing this meeting has been a fantastic opportunity for us. The fact that various stakeholders came together to discuss a proposal for a future upgrade is impressive in itself, and it's a symbol of a strong, progressive community. On behalf of Ethereum Cat Herders, I want to thank everyone who joined us on the call and tuned into the live stream. This was our second EIP special community call, post we did for account abstraction, and we hope to bring more as we go along with the journey of Ethereum development. Thank you, Edson, for moderating this call. It's great.
All right, thank you so much, Pooja. We'll wrap this up now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, everyone out there, for viewing the stream or watching it over later on replay. Yeah, everyone have a good rest of your day or evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Hudson, and everybody else.
Thank you. Thanks, Ansel.
Thanks all. Great job, Hudson.
I did not watch this from the beginning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ethereum 1559.
For anybody that missed it.
I'm going to be your host and moderator, Hudson, and today we have an awesome set of panelists who are here to discuss 1559. Let me just give everyone kind of a quick rundown of why we're having this call and basically do concerns. We have Barnaby, who's a kind of community liaison advocate. Tim is a project manager for EIP 1559. He's facilitated some of the 1559 calls and wrote the community updates. Wang Chun is from F2 Pool, which is a major mining pool and part of a group of miners supporting 1559. Bitsby Trippin, Michael, they are one and the same, is a miner and host of the Bitsby Trippin YouTube channel, which is a very popular miner hobbyist and channel, and I guess beyond hobbyist actually, but just a popular channel on mining and has some really good videos out there. Chris is from Flexpool and is one of the miners and hosts of 1559, and Roger is from InSilicon, which is an ASIC manufacturer. So we just run through everybody. The next phase of this is going to be kind of a TLDR from Tim about what 1559 is, and then we're going to go through and structure this, giving miners some time to speak, and then give a broader discussion based on rebuttals from people in response to some of the questions that might happen. We're also going to have Q&A from chat. We take questions from Discord and Reddit over the past week. And we also will take YouTube chat questions. Oh my lord. Okay, the chat is going crazy. If we can take questions from YouTube chat, we'll be taking those as well if we have any time. So thanks everyone for joining, and without further ado, I'll let Tim take it away with a quick intro to 1559.
Thanks, Hudson. I'll try to keep this very short. I guess the first thing I'll say is, like, this is not the place to learn about 1559. There's a ton of resources for that. I believe some of them are linked in the YouTube description. So if you're unfamiliar with the EIP, I really recommend just reading those before, because it is quite a big change, and they would take up half the call to properly go over the nuances. But on a high level, what 1559 does is it goes from having gas prices be something that's not part of the protocol, so that's kind of implicit and that we need to estimate, to have them be explicit and be part of the protocol. So we basically add the minimum gas price that the transaction needs to pay as part of the block header. This has a lot of nice benefits, the biggest of which is that it makes transaction fee estimation much simpler, and the reason for that is that you go from having to estimate what everybody else is willing to pay to be included to just looking at what is being proposed in the block header, and if you don't want to pay that price, then you simply cannot be included.
Oh, no problem, Max.
There's
the
a
volume's
ton
low?
Kind of ripple effects from that. So in order to have that estimation in the protocol itself, we need a way to gauge the demand of block space in the protocol. So we make the blocks
Allow me to turn it up.
bigger, and we aim to only keep them half full, so that this way, when they become more than half full, we can raise the minimum price, and when they're less than half full, we can lower that minimum price. And then because miners could kind of play with that minimum price if they actually,
and I knew that, Max, that the miner tip was not necessarily the case. Yeah,
part of it can go into miners, so that this way the design makes miners kind of agnostic to whether the minimum price is high or low. And then the final kind of bit there is, obviously, if we pay
they're not
no
stopping
transaction
ASICs,
fees, then they have no incentive at all to include transactions or even to run a node that has a transaction full. So we add this second component to the transaction fees called tip, which I believe it's called an inclusion fee now, actually, which is the part of the transaction fee that goes directly to the miners. And as with our I guess, models and research on the EIP, we kind of expect that most of the time that tip is fairly low. It compensates miners for kind of the marginal cost of including transactions. But there's a bunch of use cases where the tip might be quite high. So if you look at things like DeFi arbitrage, for example, these transactions are quite valuable, and people will want to put large tips on them in order for them to be included fast. And then when we mentioned earlier blocks, we want to keep them 50% full. So when they actually do end up 100% full, people will have to outbid each other on the tip, which is basically the system we have today. So even though those are kind of short periods, they will happen, and they'll be kind of these tip auctions. So that's my 45-second summary of 1559. Yeah, and again, if you're not familiar with the EIP, I really suggest just reading through the various resources and explainers that are there. There's really a ton.
All right, thank you so much, Tim. And I forgot earlier on the intros because it wasn't on the initial sheet.
Yeah, or unplug it, yep.
The chief cat herder from the Ethereum Cat Herders is the one who was one of the main organizers of this call. She's also handling YouTube chat along with Trent, who's volunteer modding. And,
nope, I had to unplug the Delta fan on my 3090.
Organize a lot of this. Next up, we're going to give 2 minutes each to each miner on the call. I'm not doing that because, like, of any, like, greater importance for one stakeholder versus another. But
yeah, Delta fans are noisier than all get out.
Miners, or certain miners,
it's weird to not hear the fan.
1559, and most of the other stakeholders on the call are publicly for or advocating for 1559 in some way, shape, or form. So we'll go through and kind of hear the sentiments from the miners, and then go into discussion based on what comes up of those conversations. So we'll go Wang Chun, then Michael, then Chris, then Roger. So Wang Chun from F2 Pool, do you want to give like less than 2 minute kind of overview of your position on 1559?
We were one of the first Ethereum mining pool that in China supported who originally introduced Ethereum mining to the Chinese miners. So we started to we mined our first Ethereum block back in March 2016, and soon after that, I heard there was a very serious incident on the Ethereum network, which was the DAO hack. And I must say back then that we decided to oppose the fork. So
The ETH community response to
we got,
BBT's concerns is going to
Ethereum
make the
Classic,
miners say,
and,
"Here, hold
it
my
had been
beer."
4
Yeah.
years since then, and we feel that probably Ethereum Classic was was a mistake. So and here we've seen that there are some a lot of Ethereum mining pool, Ethereum miners. If now it's like because of the EIP 1.59, we have another similar fork or anything, another second Ethereum Classic, I don't think it's going to anywhere with only support from miners, because Ethereum is Ethereum has value not because of some miners mining on it, because Ethereum has value is because Ethereum is a great platform and have developers, have users building applications, and users.
For sure, Max Voltage. Take it easy, my man. Have a good day.
For different applications. So if you think this way, I think like miner supported Ethereum, miners should be like support the secure Ethereum network because they're getting reward, it's getting a lot of benefit from the network. So, but if it's one day like miners is going against the benefit, the goal of Ethereum, I think we probably cannot to go into the same direction. So if you're looking into the future, I think so what makes the Ethereum successful, so we have to bring more developers, we have to bring in more users.
BTC
without
pump.
such a change in the fee structure. It's quite hard. The Ethereum network is already full at current stage, so we have to make some change to introduce something new to help the Ethereum going to the next step.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Next up, we have Michael. Take it away.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for having me on here to help represent the larger group of I would say the at-home miner and the folks that really had been following the channel out there with the rest of the community. And I came out pretty early on being opposed to a particular component in it, and that had to do with the fee burn. And it had to do not just to the impact that will happen on the miners out there, the new growth of mining that's out there. We're almost 2 times the original top of the hash rate. But we're looking at, an abrupt change when you have such exponential growth like that would occur in certain scenarios when you have a possible descending price and a high usage of the network, right? So you're going to have an average, block reward that is exponentially higher than the reward. And in certain scenarios where you have a reduction of... And
Mandula G, yes and no. It depends on how you want to look at it. So for the user side of it, at least they'll cap the fee. They're not going to get rid of the fee. I believe that it's going to have like a high side fee of about 20% during high traffic times. And they're trying to get it to where they can fit more transactions into one block. That will give somewhat of a better experience for the user. Be a net negative for the mining side of it, because the miners will not get that fee, which the fee is part of the reward for keeping your equipment on there. You're paying for the security. Now, if you're paying too much for security, I understand that argument. But to sit there and say that it's going to be it's going to be a good improvement for the user side of it, I would say 50-50, because again, they're not getting rid of the fee structure in it. They're burning it in hopes that the price of Ethereum will go up. So if the Ethereum price stays the same or drops during this side, then it is a negative for everybody involved in ETH, and will leave Ethereum itself more vulnerable to attacks, because if the price of Ethereum goes down, that means the advantage for the miners to stay on the network, because we don't have any kind of contract saying that we got to mine Ethereum. We're going to go off of it and try to find something more profitable that'll allow us to stack more Satoshis for sure. So that will leave Ethereum to the same vulnerability that Ethereum Classic had whenever the hash rate dropped there. So Mikkel, you're like, I'm dumping all my ETH as I mine it. F it. Franz Kunsen, yeah, let's go Raven. Now, and that's the other side of the argument. In order for Raven to be able to handle all the miners that might potentially go on to Raven, you'd have to almost look at a 40-cent Raven, 40 to 50 cents per Raven. Then it can handle all the new miners coming on. So it really is a double-edged sword. So I don't think everybody will go run into Raven. You'll have people going back to coins that they believe in the project, they believe in the dev team, but I don't think everybody will go to Raven. I don't think any one network can handle all that hash rate. It'll make it more, I think it'll more distribute the hash rate across multiple networks, which for other networks, that's a good thing. For Ethereum, it could spell disaster for them, because if the hash rate drops enough, you can more easily 51% it, which would force Ethereum to move quicker into ETH 2.0 if it is even ready for that yet. So yeah, there's bigger implementations of what might go on in the future. We'll almost have to see how it all plays out. I don't want to see Ethereum die because of something like this, but it's going to be an experiment, and they're going for they might be going forward with it. Hey, what's going on? A Raven Sky. What up? What up?
Price, like what's going on right now, and if it continues to hold that trend, you could have a very big unbalance by the time this thing goes live when it comes to the burn, where I've been estimating around 50% of the network, but if we get down to lower figures such as $600-700 Ethereum price, which nobody can control, and you have block rewards because people are doing still a lot of activity on DeFi, you have a position where you could have a 6 to 7 equivalent block reward get dropped by more than 50%. And then that presents a very interesting risk to Ethereum that I don't think Ethereum's ever had to deal with in its life, where you have an exponential amount of hash power and you have this de-incentive artificially come in, and it actually creates a situation where you have a size of pie of a potential hash power that now comes off of it looking where that hash power is going to go, and you have an attack vector that Ethereum hasn't had to deal with, where pretty much every coin in the market that is proof of work besides Bitcoin has had to deal with, which is a resistance attack against 51%. And it isn't theory, it's happened to almost every network from pick a network that's not Ethereum or Bitcoin that's proof of work that's probably gotten attacked at least once. I see that existential risk. I'm concerned about that existential risk, and I think there's multiple ways to address it. Hopefully we'll cover a couple of those today. If the EIP 1559 goes in as it is wholesale, I think there's still a way to address it through a bump in the block reward. And there's models that have been built on that, and I'll point to folks to that development that has been a kind of a community effort on explaining, that risk. So hopefully we can get to that at some point today. But, that's where I feel I'm representing the larger group out there that right now is the rolling wave of that hash power coming on. And
yeah, that is true,
hopefully we can
Mikkel.
get to some of that today.
No respect for
That's what we
BBT from the ETH Cat Herders.
Thanks so much. Chris from Flexpool, you have 2 minutes.
These guys, the
Hi,
ETH
I'm
Cat
Chris.
Herders, they're
Is my mic working?
the ETH Cat Herders. They are definitely for EIP 1559. They are their viewpoint is going to be burn the fee, let the price go up, let the price go up, and then as long as the price goes up, it doesn't matter if there's not as much block reward because the price went up, and that price going up is the reason is now your new incentive. So all the miners that were the OG miners like Bitsby Trippin', where they were championing for Ethereum for people to utilize Ethereum, they have to start all over again to get new users to come in so that the price of Ethereum goes up. I'm not really into it. Turn my music down a bit. My music's barely up. I could turn it down a little bit more. Alright. Yeah, Timber, yeah. In one sense, I hope Ethereum doesn't fall for this, crumble and fade out. I hope that they're able to survive something like this. I hope this is not a bad decision for them in the long run. If ETH were to fall in a forest, would anybody hear it? Oh my god. Nope. Oh yeah. If crotch critters attacked Ethereum, would anybody notice? Oh god.
Yes, it is. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Hi, I'm Chris. What we as a pool feel is that our miners were quite upset over 159, so we talked to them, and then we made an announcement stating our opposition, and other pools got on board. As we've talked to other miners and we've talked to the devs, we've come to say that we don't mind 1559, as it does bring several improvements to the Ethereum network, and honestly, we do think it would improve things. But when 1559 was first thought up, the gas was so small on blocks, and now it's more than double the actual base fee. So now we're talking about a cut in what miners make of over 50%. And talking to other miners, we've tried to find basically a middle ground here, where we make a great sacrifice
Too funny,
for the
Mikkel.
community, and perhaps the community can give us something back. As Michael has pointed out, we do believe the base fee should be increased from 2 to 3, just so instead of you have a 50% drop, you have basically a 40% drop. But also miners, we put out, someone, because I've been working together with a couple of miners, so one of them put out a poll on Reddit, and in that poll we had different options of what miners want to do. So 55.3%
For sure, Raven.
of those miners said they could accept 1559 if 969 came along with that. 9669 is like the minimum change necessary to prevent broad ASIC proliferation on the network. As you might remember from
It won't stop.
From ETASH 2.0.
That I disagree with that. The fee drop is not going to stop it. Because a lot of these ASIC miners, they're in industrial areas with industrial ratings on their electric. So their net sum is way different than the at-home GPU miner that's paying residential electric. Most people are paying no less, especially in the United States, unless you know how to wheel and deal, which that's a few of us, but on average, you're going to be between 9 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour across the United States. I have seen it as high as 20 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's that the ASICs are not going to be stopped by this in any way, shape, or form, as long as it's proof of stake and their cost of electric to profitability ratio is high enough. And that's where you run it as a business like I do, and I look at it as, if I'm going to spend $1 in electricity to mine, I want to make $2 plus 10% for me to go onto it. So I should be able to double my electric with a 10% profit margin on it. To me, that makes it worth mining. There are exceptions to the rule. Extreme bear markets, that is a different situation. Now I'm looking at an accumulation phase. I need to be able to accumulate 30 to 40% more coin than I was currently. Realistically, I would like to see 200 to 300% coin transmission during a bear market, and that's what I did during the last bear market. Is that I was generating about 400 times the coin than I was during a bull market. So to me, that made the profitability in a different range. Now I'm just waiting for the market to turn around. Bitcoin pumps, I dump my bags. Beautiful. It's a little gamble that us home miners do. Even the bigger farming community, farms will do the same thing. They just need to make sure that they're not liquidating all their coins for the bills. That's why Bits be tripping during the bear market. He actually turned his rigs off because the price of him paying to keep the miners on, plus all, having employees, having the building, it was cheaper for him to turn off the power, pay the building fee, and then just buy the coin outright. There'll be times where you're flip-flopping. Okay, it's better to mine. No. Now it's better to buy. So you're as a miner, you're balancing out this. You're walking on a fine line of what you would consider net profitability. But it all boils down to where your electric rate is, and you get inside the Mongolian region, inside of China, and their electric rate for industrial is a half a cent kilowatt hour. I think it's like about 3/4 of a cent per kilowatt hour after all the taxes and everything out there. You go to India, they've got half cent a kilowatt hour after all the taxes are on there. So areas like that, them cutting out them going forward with the EIP 1559 with the fee structure burn on there is not really going to affect them. Not one of those farms will turn off this. So ASICs will always be on the network until they go to proof of stake. Proof of stake kicks off the miners, but it's at that time it's like, okay, where's that fine line of centralization at that point? Because in order to go to proof of stake, you've got to go onto Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Cloud Service. There's not a lot of options, because you want to make sure that if you're going to stake, you want to make sure your staking node stays up 100% of the time, because if it turns off for whatever reason, the network will penalize your holdings for that. So and then James Sampson, Chris was advocating to implement 969 along with 1559 to confront the ASIC proliferation. True. 969 gives ASICs the edge. It doesn't give it the edge. It doesn't stop ASICs from coming on. It just makes it to where they've got to act more like a GPU. My ASIC that I have right now, my E3, already acts like acts more like a GPU. It will the EIP 969. I do not think would even stop my ASIC from mining on it, but it will stop more specified ASIC. So you're not going to see an ASIC like you would with Bitcoin, where, yeah, exactly, Mikkel. EIP 969 and 1559 solves nothing. If you really want to combat the ASIC issue, go to ProgPow. ProgPow levels the playing field. It's not saying that ProgPow doesn't say, hey, ASICs, you can't come on here. It just says, hey, ASICs, you have no advantage over your GPU counterpart. I hope you know how to make a very efficient machine that doesn't cost you a lot, because you are going to get no advantage. EIP, the ProgPow load balances between the core and memory modules, and then how you increase hash rate is by pumping power to it. Yeah, Raven showed what ProgPow can actually do. Everybody questioned ProgPow. Now Raven's on there, and AMD is not disadvantaged on ProgPow. NVIDIA does not have the advantage on ProgPow at all. It's how much power can you throw at your GPUs determines how profitable you really are. And then you got that fine line of, did I push so much power that I dropped into the unprofitable range? So you're going to start pulling power back to where you're at that fine line of, okay, profitable, but barely. In a bull market, you're going to be like, yeah, throw power at it. I want as many coins as I could possibly get my hands on. And then during a bear market, you're going to pull power off, because you're going to put your GPUs into the more profitable zone where you're not dropping heat on there. So, I mean, Raven did show that ProgPow has a lot of benefits. I know a lot of people gave Christy Lee, Oh God, a Girl, a hard time over it because they thought it was all for NVIDIA, and it wasn't really the case. Yeah, and reading into 1559, I do like the idea that it does bring a fee cap. So it standardizes the fees a bit. That aspect I do like. That will help the user experience. But to straight up burn it, I think it will turn it'll disenfranchise a lot of the miners. And if you disenfranchise a lot of the miners from wanting to mine it, because, you know, let's say they're sitting at 15 cents a kilowatt hour, and you start doing a fee burn, now it's going to cost them too much in power to mine. So now they no longer can participate in the network, because they live in an area where electricity is just too damn high. That aspect I do not like. I think we should always have inclusion. I know that the Ice Age event's going to come up, but they're talking about putting in a tip feature to kind of help push your fee through. I see that being a potential dual-edged sword, where, yeah, you're doing a fee burn, so your user is still going to get the fee burned, but now if you want to get your transaction pushed through a little bit faster on a high traffic day, you're going to have to pay the miner. So at that point, you're still paying the full amount of fee that you would as of right now, like a day or two ago, whenever there was a 25 block reward for Ethereum. I don't know if it's going to solve that. But I do believe that if you start burning it, you know, you would hope that the price would stabilize where it's at and have an uptick, because now you're getting rid of some supply, but at the same time there's no supply cap. So you can burn as much Ethereum as you want. There'll always be Ethereum being generated. So it's like, you know, like cash. There is no limitation to how much cash there is. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying, James. It's just to make it more predictable so that you have a standardization on the fees. That one aspect I do like, and I do support the standardization of the fee. It shouldn't be a wild swing. But at the same time, that wild swing was supposed to stop you as the user from trying to transact on a high volume day. It was like, oh, the volume's too high today. I'll check back in an hour. And then when you go to check back an hour, oh my God, it's even worse now. I'll check this out tomorrow. I'll send this transaction out tomorrow. We'll call it a day tomorrow. So it depends on how you really look at it, the fee structuring on it right now. But the fee burn does nothing, in my opinion. But to implement an EIP 1559 with a standardization of fees, I could support that. But to take it away from us miners, fuck them. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not happening yet for Ravencoin, but I know that they're probably looking at it going, oh yeah, we're going to get some hash rate, we're going to get some love over here, we're going to get some of those miners over here, and it'll be amazing. Yeah. I don't think it'll do anything for price-wise for them, though. That will be my opinion, though. But we'll have to see how this all plays out for sure.
Several miners believe ASICs should not be part of the network. Along with 55% of them voting for 969, 7% of them voted to increase the DAG. So you basically have 63% of miners voting not to have ASICs on the network, and they said if you do that, then they can accept 1559, which is basically a huge sacrifice on their part.
Yeah, 'cause like he was saying that the EIP 956 is gonna more just like increase a lot of the DAG files, so that the DAG is just too big. But then you're like really taking a hit on all the people who are running with smaller cards. 4 gigs will definitely be done. 6 gig cards will probably be gone. 8 gig cards will be near end of life, which means that you're looking at being able to, you're only going to be able to mine with the newest cards. So 5000 series and up on AMD and 30 series. Good luck trying to find them, though. They are unattainium at this point. We're fighting scalpers and other miners trying to get these same exact cards. And plus the whole gaming community. Everybody's looking for GPUs, and they're looking for the newest ones. So EIP 956 or whatever it is, I don't think is going to be or 969. Yeah, that's it. 969. I don't think that it's going to be the right step, but that's just me. Correct. Yeah, I believe in that, James, for sure. Increase. If you're having an issue with your blocks just being overloaded, you either need to learn how to repackage your headers so that you can fit more in each block, just like Bitcoin did. Whenever they implemented, what is it? The couple of the improvements on Bitcoin, they were able to package more into their block by reorchestrating how they did the block headers, and then they basically consolidated each of the bits so that the blocks would fit the bits more effectively. A fee burn is something that I think is just a wrong way to do it, especially since they're not going to be doing this fee burn with the stakers. But definitely have a more standardized fee model, and then making sure that your transactions can all fit in one block. Whether that means that you have to be a big blocker, or you just need to redo the code so that your transactions fit better into each one. That's my opinion on it. I mean, there's certain things with the EIP 1559 that's not bad, but there are other things that I think is going to be if you're sitting there and wanting cheaper security, you're going to have less secure. Your org are going to be less secure in the long run.
I think I'm done.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. And yeah, if you have a link to the poll, throw it in the Zoom chat, and we can take a look at that for anyone who wants to do a rebuttal for some of that piece. And next up, finally for representing the miners, and not necessarily for or con, obviously, but whatever they want. Roger from Silicon, an ASIC manufacturer. Go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Roger, and I'm the CTO for InnoSilicon. And InnoSilicon has been building ASIC miners since 2013.
I would like to get him on a
Bitcoin
chat.
28 nanometer ASIC miner back then, and in 2018 we started doing Ethereum ASIC miners, and over the last 2-3 years we had the first generation A10 and also a follow-up of A10 Pro, and right now we are working on A11. So we have been a supporter for the Ethereum protocol, and we strongly believe in the protocol. So and the 1559, it's going to reduce the gas fee, which upsets some of our customers. But overall, I feel they will continue to support the Ethereum, whatever the decision will be. We're just a little bit nervous about the discussion about attaching the I think 969 EIP 969 on top of the 1559, because that's going to that's going to disable a lot of our customers from being able to continue to do mining. So overall, I think because we have the first-hand data, and overall, I believe right now the ASIC mine only represents a small fraction of the total hash rate out there. We believe that a lot of the times we've been blamed on, or people are worried about the ASIC miner proliferates, but in reality, it probably only represents around 10% of the total hash rate if you add all the ASIC miners together. So we want to say that we will support whatever decision was made on the 1559, but we don't want that 969 to be added on top of it. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Roger. Now we're going to go into people who can kind of discuss some of the things that were just said, or other points they want to bring up, technical or non-technical, when it comes to this, to what was brought up.
Roger Mao, he is the chief CTO, chief technology officer for InnoSilicon. InnoSilicon is a ASIC chip manufacturer, so they make Bitcoin miners, they make the Ethereum miners, and they got a couple of other ones also that they are making.
If you would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll try my best to make sure the order is in place. We'll start with Hasu.
Yeah, hey. So I would briefly address what Michael and Chris were saying. So Michael said, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have if we lower the revenue, or if the revenue gets lower as a result of EIP 1559, then this presents like a large share, share of dormant hash rate that could pose a security risk to the network. And I would respond to this that Ethereum and many other coins have survived long-term bear markets where the price of Ether and the fee revenues dropped by way over 90%. And they have never had any issues with their security. The point where many networks have had issues with their security is if they went for GPU over ASIC mining. So I would name this as a different concern that I have to removing or to introducing EIP 969, which is that no network that has ASIC mining or an ASIC friendly mining algorithm has ever been attacked with double spend attacks. whereas many GPU mining coins have.
Okay, Thomas.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
That's
and lower
why
your
I'm not
hand
big
after
with
it's
F2
raised,
pool.
if you are done with your rebuttals.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes, I think,
James.
my statement as a client developer would be, we look at EIP 1559 and other EIPs both together and separately. So together in a way that we need to know what tools we have at disposal in case those sudden changes of the hash rates appear around EIP 1559, which, by the way, we don't really expect because we think that there is very long process of
I've got to wait
around EIP 155.
I've got to wait for my last payout on F2 pool, which I believe is in a couple of days, and then I'm fucking off of F2 pool. I'm not big on Chung Wang's vision on mining. He's all about his little Bitcoin, his little ASIC buddies. That's in his personal inner circle. That's who he will represent. All the other people on there are just, whatever. Hey, Panda, smash that like. Smash it. Yeah. Smash it so hard, it never pops back up. Yeah, F2 pool. Yeah, I'm waiting for my payout. That's all I'm doing right now. As soon as I get a payout, I'm switching my the only thing I got left on F2 pool is my S9. As soon as I can do that, I'm done. Yeah, Hive on. I don't mind Hive on pool. The only problem that I have with Hive on pool is how they're trying to force the people that are on Hive OS. If you want to mine Ethereum, you have to use their pool. I don't like that approach on things, but Hive on pool is not bad. Ethermine is not too bad. I'm on Nano pool. Nano pool's not bad. Yeah, boycott F2 pool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they didn't do the 9.6 whatever it was, 965 or yeah, 969 didn't solve anything.
A long preparation process for the community, for miners, for users to understand the implication, to
all these EIP numbering, they must be like taking their stuff directly from Microsoft, because you got the 10900K or the 10 whatever. I'm hating Microsoft's chip naming structure just as much as I hate the EIP naming structures. Like I like they're with the London implementation that's coming up here soon. I like that. It's a name structure, easier for me to remember. But you start spitting out numbers and it's like all I deal with numbers is on engines. So I got to remember numbers for engines, and I got to remember numbers for the EIP protocols. Fuck that.
Compare any potential shifts with hash rate and also any capital expenditures. But still, we need to know how to react, and that's why we have the list of various EIPs, but we cannot see them as a kind of a bargaining tool of whether EIP 1559 goes in or not. We see that EIP 1559 is simply a big improvement, and we believe strongly that based on all the research done and testing and implementations, that it's safe and it will be safe. It doesn't mean that we can just avoid monitoring and being aware of what we can use to make sure that the safety remains, whatever the market conditions, whether price to go further up or down, or whether anything unexpected happens. And we cannot say that no attacks happened. We know, like Ethereum Classic had some moments of like tough days around mining, around attacks, and we need to be aware of that, and we are, and we know what the tools are there.
Real quick before we move on to Michael, when you say we, as in we
Sorry,
support,
yeah,
is that
me
you?
as a
Okay.
Ethereum client developer. I'm sorry.
No problem, no problem. You could be speaking on behalf of Nethermind, obviously. Just wanted to make sure we got clarification on that. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so wanted to respond specifically to what Hazu was saying, and I guess I'll land it on a hermetic principle of cause and effect, and the difference between any other prior year of mining. Well, if we talk the 2018 peak where we hit about 300 terahash total network.
Take it easy,
grew all
Golden
the way
Wolf.
down to 136 terahash at the lowest point, and including last year, we were at about 140 terahash when we hit $86. Those were natural events. Things pulled back down, and a lot of miners turned off. The difference that this proposes is not a gradual decrease in a decision point for miners. This is an abrupt change at a particular point in time, and there are many models where this is a non-issue. I would say out of the 10 or 12 that are part of that the mining analysis sheet that I've done so far, there's only a couple that really put it at a real potential risk, and that really comes down to a couple effects. If you have a descending price and a high volume usage of Ethereum where disproportionately the transaction fees make up more than 60 to 80% of the miner's intake. I can't tell you how many times in history where certain things were said that wasn't a risk and it happened.
Yeah, James, exactly.
I know some folks crossing the ocean were holding on to some icebergs because they didn't think a ship would sink. And what I'm trying to explain is that I think we can watch this as a rolling wave.
I haven't heard anything bad.
We can be way ahead of it. I think even if EIP 1559 moves forward, it's like a forecast is what we're doing right now. We have an actual that we're going to keep filling in, and then we'll have a latest estimate to assure what trigger needs to be in place when 1559 would execute. That trigger may be a block reward increase to ensure there's not a cliff that it falls off of. So it's not going to be a gradual change and adjustment. It's going to be a cliff if there's a large transaction fee, and that's what the hash rate follows the profitability. So if we get into a situation in June and we're still averaging 6-10 spikes of 25 Ethereum per transaction block, which is bringing up the relative payout to a miner, and we have a descending price, we have a real risk of
John Harris, I think Hasu is part of it. Thomas, Barnaby. I think there's a couple of them that are part of, Hudson and Pooja. I think some of these people are part of the Ethereum Foundation, but they're not like anybody that has like this huge influence over it. That's why they've got to have the Ethereum dev meeting that will be coming up here, talking about the EIP 1559 and all that stuff. So this is just the cat herders that are a smaller subsect of Ethereum itself. Use them for Conflux and Raven. Nice.
Hash rate following all the way up to 700 terahash at its current 7.5%, month over month compounded growth, which we've seen since essentially November with the price increases. If that continues, and if the price continues to go up.
Correct, James. Very correct. Yeah, they're not they're not devs. The devs are the ones that are going to have the most influence. So you are 100% correct, James. Yeah, these are like editors and authors of the EIPs. So they stand from the theoretical standpoint of it all.
it may offset it, but bottom line is to ensure that we're tracking it, and that's what I'm bringing up from a risk.
Like the people that represent the practicality will be Michael Carter, Chris, and Roger Mao from Innosilicon, because these are the ones that are these are the guys that represent the mining community.
Because as a miner of GPUs, we're long the entire crypto net, ecosystem, meaning there is no social contract. Ethereum doesn't have to do anything for us in that behalf, but it's a two-way street. If something else becomes more profitable and the size of pie of total potential hash power continues to increase, Ethereum can get itself into a situation where if it gets unproportionately imbalanced, that it is an attack vector. And what I guess I'm trying to ensure that people understand is that we need to have the ability to track that and to make an adjustment accordingly. I just, as a miner, there's been a few times that folks have been burned. There has been instances where ASICs are on a network, FPGAs. If we look at something like Verge, you look at a few of the other networks that were smaller that have had issues like this. It is not ASIC. ASICs do not. They give a false sense of security if when you're looking at a 51% attack. If enough hash rate is purchased from a brokerage, folks that are going after that brokerage value where they're going to get more yield than mining out of pool, unbeknownst to them, their ASICs could be used to attack the network. So I think it's a fallacy to think that ASICs protect you from that because their incentives are aligned to the coin. If a brokerage such as NiceHash has a higher margin of return, and you got investors that are not really watching the network or market, they're just going to look at where they can get the best yield, ASICs, FPGAs, or GPUs alike. So I'll
correct. So if ASICs
answer that counter.
ASICs or GPUs on a brokerage, whether it be mining rig rentals, NiceHash, or whatever other options that are out there, any place where you can do rented hash power, doing contracts with remote mining, all of that stuff can be very well bought and paid for and pointed at any network. It's the amount of hash power to yield that you would have to buy. So if what you're going to return back is not enough, like let's say you're talking a 3% return to spend $100,000 for 1 hour, is it necessarily worth it to only have a 3% return on what you're doing? Probably not. But if I sit there and I spend $100,000 for an hour to attack a network, and my return is $750,000 on a return side on there, you're looking at multiples. You're almost talking 1,000% return on investment. Now your attack vector is a lot easier to sit there and pull the trigger on. Yeah, a lot of people will go to NiceHash at first. It's just an easy, convenient way of operation, but the fee structure on there kind of sucks. You're like right around 9% fees afterwards, because at the end of the day, NiceHash has to make a profit on those buying the hash power to those that are selling the hash power. They are making money coming and going. So market goes up, they win. Market goes down, they win. I just stay away from any of that stuff because of the centralization. I don't want somebody to be able to, oh yeah, I'm going to attack X coin and I'm going to buy all the hash power that I can get my hands on. Yeah, I mean it is a nice GUI and everything for sure. I'll agree with that, James. I've played around with Nice Hash. I played around with it back in the day, whenever it was like really janky and stuff like that. It is what it is. So, but yeah, I would rather just support the coin directly. If you're looking for Bitcoin, you can just sit there and mine to your wallet, bring it to an exchange, and cash out, and still spend less than what Nice Hash is charging you. So that's always been my kind of viewpoint on it.
Thank you, Michael. Next up, we have Hasu, then let's do Hasu, then Micah, then Georgios, then Chris. It looks like the order is correct on my screen.
Yeah, I guess to talk more about like how. Well, I guess it's always good to have like a frame of reference, how much revenue we are actually talking, right? How much revenue could be burned, and how miner profitability would actually be affected. So at this point, I think it's important to reiterate.
Rodney, I will. Yes and no. ASICs will be, I think, ASICs are just as hard to get your hands on, if not harder, depending on where you're at. To get them, because you're going to have the biggest mining facilities putting in the biggest orders. So a lot of places you're just not going to be able to get your hands on them, just because the bigger mining facilities will implement more capital to keeping in the top percentage on the network. So GPU scarcity, ASIC scarcity, it's real. During a bear market, oh man, you can get your hands on this stuff like no problem. But in a bull market, it don't matter how you're mining. You're gonna be fighting the world trying to get any kind of equipment at all. Yeah, you already have that with Bitmain with Bitcoin. Yeah, you can't get your hands on anything. Nothing. The computer equipment is unattainium.
That miner revenue consists of three sources. So the first is the block subsidy, that's 2 ETH per block plus the uncle rewards. Then you have congestion fees, that's basically users paying just to get included in a block. And then you have MEV transactions, and that is arbitrage bots bidding up gas prices in the memory pool to get included at a specific point in a block or very early in a block. And Georgios and I, actually right before this call started, published an analysis on insights.deribit.com that you can check out, where we, for the first time, we leveraged MEV classification data from Fletchbot's MEV Explorer that shows that we believe that the impact of MEV on miner revenue has been greatly understated so far. And so Flashbots only gives us like an absolute lower bound for how much MEV actually makes up of miner revenue. And we find it quite likely that we are
true,
talking
Red
at most
Panda.
about a reduction of 20 to 30, but probably way lower revenue for miners due to EIP 1559. And that is because MEV transactions are not affected by this. They will continue to be in the tip, whereas only the congestion fee would become the base fee and hence be excluded.
Would that
So
be
we are
across?
not-
Would that real quick? Would that be across all miners or just like the pools who are extracting MEV specifically?
So you don't need to extract MEV specifically. In fact, we cannot even see the revenue that miners get by extracting MEV specifically. We can only see the fee revenue that they get from the so-called priority gas auctions between arbitrage bots and liquidation bots that happen in the memory pool.
Got it. Thank you. If you have anything else, or did you want me to pass it to next?
You can pass it.
Okay. I think next up was Micah. Is that right?
It was, but I was going to say the same thing about MEV, so someone else can go.
Cool. All right, Georgios.
Also MEV.
Okay. In that case, I think it was either... Okay, Chris. Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
I just want to reply here. You talk about I've seen discussions
Yeah,
about the
Red.
minimum amount we.
I will agree with that one, Red. I don't think he's looking at the right data aggregate. If you look at it through the nonces, you can see that it's closer to like 40% of the network is ASICs. It's between 40 to 50% of the network is definitely ASICs. Anything beyond that, it's harder to tell. It could be as high as 60%, but at least between 40 to 50% are ASIC miners. It's something that Oh God, a Girl went and did a deep dive in. I've picked her brain on it. She believes it's closer to 60% of the network hash rate. Or she's hinted that it looks like it's higher. Yeah, between 40 and 60%, yeah. So it all depends on how, what information you're looking at. If you're just going like off of Roger, where he's like only 10%, it's like, okay, did he just go around going, yo, are you mining with ASICs? Oh no, you got yours off, okay. And he goes and knocks on all the doors, and they're like, yeah, we're not running ASICs. Yeah, or are they just going off of customer count and then just what's their calculation? I'd love to see the info that they're looking at, or he's looking at for sure. My God, meme.
We should pay for security, and when you have a coin that's worth 10 or 100 million, the minimum is fine. But when you have something worth, I believe 200 billion was the number, around a quarter of what Bitcoin is worth, you're not talking about the minimum here. You're talking about trying to pay the maximum you want for security. When you look at neighborhoods in, let's say, a city, the neighborhood with the most stuff to steal always has the best security. And here you have Ethereum, and it's a massive project, and you're talking about paying, I believe, 1 or 2% a year, and you're saying we should pay a little bit less because we should pay the minimum. But in the end, what you really need to pay for security, the maximum to keep Ethereum safe. Because you want people looking outside saying, these guys are paying as much as they can for security.
Yes.
Okay, Aftab?
I completely agree with that. You're not going to go into... Okay, so I can't just drive up to Bill Gates' house and go on his door. No, he's going to have security at the edge of his property, checking every car coming into the place. He's going to have state-of-the-art security in his house at all times. He's going to have cameras everywhere. So this guy has just put out as much money as humanly possible on his own house for security. Now you look at, Microsoft. Microsoft sat there and spent big bucks to make sure Microsoft in itself is safe and secure. I believe that that's something that's the reason why Bitcoin pays so much for security, or any other coin that's had a great run with security, Litecoin. ASICs aren't the be all end all for mining. And the only real secure way. But if you can sit there and encourage as many people to come onto your network with whatever hardware that is the most efficient for the network, sure, you need to be paying top dollar to make sure that no miner ever turns his equipment off, ever, no matter where he is in the world. That's just my opinion.
Thanks, Hudson. I wanted to offer a few points around what we've heard so far, but also talk a little bit about EIP 1559 from a user and investor perspective for a second, because I know there's a lot of people on this call who are on the YouTube that might not have a lot of familiarity. And I feel like it's important to discuss why we're even having this conversation for a minute. And I do want to say first, I am sympathetic to the miner position. I understand their point of view. But I also want to point out that we've had this kind of existential concern argument before. And just economically, and this isn't a personal comment. It's just economically, they have an incentive to present really the worst case scenario, which may be very unlikely to occur. And we saw this previously in ProgPow as well. And everything that we were told that would happen in that situation did not in fact happen. Ethereum hash rate is now higher than ever, and the network is very secure. But I do think from a community perspective, and what I talk to people about in the community is they really view this as a massive UX improvement first and foremost. Ethereum is now at a place where I don't even want to recommend it to some new users because I know their first experience is going to be they're going to have a stuck transaction probably on their first or second transaction, and they're not going to know how to troubleshoot it. So being able to get a transaction in at a defined price with a very high reliability or expectation that that transaction will be included is huge. And I think Tim Roughgarden's paper where he compares this to the Amazon versus the real estate model, where in Amazon you buy something, you know what the price is, versus in real estate you're bidding and have no idea if you're going to get it for that price. I think that's a really good example for us to think about. And I do want to talk briefly about the monetary policy benefit of why we're thinking about this and why users and investors and holders of ETH think that this is important. Miners have clearly provided a really valuable service to the network over time, and they have helped to distribute the token to allow us to eventually transition to proof of stake. But let's not forget that really since the beginning of Ethereum's journey, we've had that expectation of moving to proof of stake. And even since those earlier days, ETH has become far more important as an economic asset. It's a critical core asset to DeFi, a fundamental underpinning of it, and there's little doubt that economically hardening it creates a benefit, a very broad benefit for all ETH holders and investors versus a concentrated one for the people who participate in mining. So if we can achieve that without creating a significant detriment to functionality or to security, then we should do it, and we should really have that conversation around why we should do it. And then finally, I do think economically hardening ETH now helps us to ensure a secure transition to proof of stake, because stakers will not just be earning income from issuance, they will have assets locked in the base asset, which is Ether. And so creating conditions where we may economically harden that asset, which may lead potentially to an economic appreciation, helps us ensure that staking will be successful and that proof of stake will be successful. And finally, fee burning perhaps allows us to have that best of both worlds, where you have we don't, in Ethereum, we don't believe that a simple hard cap is secure. And so we know that we need issuance. And so this allows us potentially to have issuance while also keeping a check on supply. So I wanted to interject that in what is otherwise a good technical discussion, but I think it's important to remember why we're even talking about this.
All right, we got Rick, then Georgios, then Michael.
Hi, everyone. I think over the years of working on this project, and
he's done some of his talk. I'm not sure if he's gonna do more. I think he does another bigger conversation here in a moment.
And I haven't really been engaging with the miner community on this. I've, sort of stepped away from working on 1559, but I thought it was important to come in here today. It seems to me that at a high level, apropos of what the gentleman before me just said, the miners, I'm listening to the miners' concerns, and I'm really trying to process and understand where they're coming from and what their issues are, and I feel like many of us on the more research side of things are yelling MEV.
It'll affect just the Ethereum and the Ethereum mining.
On this call, I know some of them understand MEV quite well because I've spoken to them about it in passing. But it doesn't seem clear to me that Chris and Michael are fully appreciate the full environment that we're in with DeFi and MEV and how that impact is going to be enormous for miners. And so I don't want to presume that. I want some feedback from the miners. Do you folks, how are you viewing MEV geth or MEV changes in the future, and have you folks been thinking about how that will impact your price?
All right, and then we have Georgios, then Michael.
Yeah, so thank you, Hudson. So firstly, like to quickly answer Rick's question. miners don't need to understand MEV. The existence of MEV being extracted by traders generates fees that miners earn via the priority gas auctions. So putting that aside, miners have another form of revenue that comes from MEV, and they don't need to know anything about MEV. They just get more money because of MEV. So that aside, I want to respond to Chris's earlier point around how that you should pay, let's say, as much as possible instead of minimum. So firstly, let's agree on some common ground truth. The Ethereum network exists to serve transactors and ETH holders and not the miners. So the holders, they currently subsidize security for everyone else via the block subsidy, and they should not have to pay more than what's necessary. So then, using that like as a kind of like as a compass, we can easily understand that the rewards should scale with the network size, and they should not be over the network size, neither should they be lower than the network size. Currently, we overpay for security. So the EIP, what it does is that it brings things back to normal.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover here.
Yeah,
so
exactly. You're gonna get an extra minute or two if you need.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying. So I'm gonna go down. I've been trying to keep notes. So I guess I'll first start with I'm gonna cover essentially the ASIC comment, the economic hardening comment, and a little bit of the MEV comment, and then that last piece of where miners are in the stack with regards to supporting ETH. So ASIC's piece with ProgPal, the comment there. So the main concern back in 2018 was that there would, based on the history of every other coin that's went with it, had the opportunity piece with ASICs, was the concern that there would be a centralization of the hardware design. And purely from the economics of building and taping out that hardware, you have by design a much less efficient supply chain to get opportunity out there for participation. So you have this natural collapse of your participants. You also have a natural collapse of the influence or anything that's part of that ecosystem. So what's played out is with the growth of Ethereum and the price of the transactions, there's more GPU miners than there ever have been on the network. So to the extent of, did ASIC resistance or did any of that move to ProgPal, was it a non-issue? I think it was just an issue of the growth of the network provided a lot more participation, and the inefficiencies in the supply chain, and part of the risk of is Ethereum going to move to 2.0 prevented certain players from getting into the ASIC side of it. If tomorrow the core devs came out and said, you know what, we're going to slip, or we're going to have two different chains with 2.0 and we're going to continue ETH 1.0, you're going to have a proliferation of ASIC investment costs come in there, and then they'll start taping out stuff just because the economic value is there to do it. So I just think it's a mix of a bear market pulled some people out, and it landed where it's at now. But we're seeing already new ASICs come online with forecasts to build, like Silicon's doing that. And I think right now, if the numbers are at 10%, it's not that huge of an impact. The concern is if it grew past that, and you would have a misalignment of, that when the network goes to move to proof of stake, where you have GPU miners that are long all crypto market and can pivot to another algorithm, ASICs are lockstep with that algorithm. So now you have this resistance model in place for their possibly, causing some issues on the transition. When I talk economic hardening, that's another. So for folks that are not tracking, that are on the chat and that are listening to this, that's effectively creating that reduction of supply, or at least telling off the inflation rate of Ethereum, thereby trying to trigger a supply demand piece with Ethereum, thereby moving the price up, right, for holders. By design, I had a piece of this on a separate video. A lot of the content that I talk about has a lot more depth, so the little bit that I get to respond to it here, there is a lot of this already talked to on the channel. But bottom line, with an uncapped limit, all you're doing is just telling it off to try to artificially push the price up. I think the network use and a lot of the features that come with Ethereum drive a lot of its value and price and its confidence in it. When we start trying to tinker with the inflation rate, you're in a non-known schedule way, it's artificially playing with it. And I don't know if that has the same economic benefits. And we'll see after EIP 1559 goes in, if we come back into another bear market. Not saying that that's part of the reasons for that, but I'm just saying, just like the 2 times that the ETH reward has been reduced, it did not necessarily have the effects I think that was people were expecting. From 5 to 3, it was coming off of the 2017 high. From 3 to 2, we went as low as $86 from 330. So I think there's a misalignment on that understanding that has anything to do, and I think there's a lot more economics to it that's not being covered there. When we start talking about MEV,
and let's cap another like minute or two.
Okay, yeah, I'll be real quick on MEV because there's not a lot. So with a lot of that development and with DeFi being new since May of this last year, I don't think there's enough data out there that we have seen presented or done ourselves to see what the real extraction value is there. I would be, I'm going to add it to the mining sheet and try to see if we can put a value to that of what a typical miner can see, because it hasn't been covered. I have not covered it on my channel. I'm taking it as a note to do more research to make sure that I can provide a better view for people to understand what that means for the ecosystem, because we may be downplaying it more than or not talking about it enough to help concern what miners can do. So I think that was, yeah, I'll just submit from that piece and then we'll let you guys get back into it.
Perfect, Micah.
Just a quick comment on the MEV thing that I suspect there's maybe a little bit of misunderstanding here, so I just want to clarify. So MEV is miner extracted value, and it's I've argued for months it's a terrible name because miners are not the ones extracting the value right now. In fact, I don't think we've ever seen a miner directly extract the value until very recently. I mean, historically been traders and arbitragers and botters and whatnot. When people say miner extractor value, the reason it's called that is because miners are in the best position to extract that value, and they have a basically insurmountable advantage over everyone else. So if miners start participating in MEV, they can extract all of it, and no one else can even stand a chance. Like, there's literally no way you can beat a miner at MEV. So my thoughts for miners out there is that, and this is kind of unrelated to 1559, so I'm going to keep it short, but I strongly encourage you to look into getting into MEV extraction. Like, there is millions of dollars a day in MEV extraction that is currently being taken by bots because they have the resources to do it. So consider going into that business, and then you can just ignore fees altogether because you're just making so much money in other things that you don't need the fees. Also, you can, if you want an easy route into that, MEV Geth is a tool that lets you get into that.
I'd hate to interrupt, but I think it has to be said that what you said is not true. The miners do capture a substantial amount of all the possible MEV today, even if they have no idea what MEV is, and that's because the front-running bots bid for priority in the mempool, and the miners earn these rewards that often go up to like 80-90% of the entire MEV opportunity via the transaction fee.
I thought Micah was talking about a different type of MEV, like maybe.
Yes. He's mostly correct. Correct there. I'll rephrase slightly just before I close out. There is a lot more value that miners could make if they get into this directly, rather than just relying on the price gas auctions. If you're only relying on price gas auctions, you get a little bit, depending on how long the block is, kind of determines how much you get, because the longer the gas auction goes on, the closer you get to maxing it all out. And so for short blocks, you can make a lot more. For long blocks, you make a little bit less. Anyways, just keep that in mind, miners. There's money to be made in other avenues besides fees. So if you're worried about your fee revenue going down, consider getting into that. And you can look into MEV Geth and Flashbots if you're interested.
They've got no sound. This is not me.
We lose Hudson.
There we go.
Hudson muted.
Oh, have I been muted this whole time? I'm sorry. Okay, I was gonna say thank you, Micah, and just to remind everyone, let's try not to speak out of turn, and just go in the order so we can make sure everyone gets heard. So Wang Chung is next.
Yeah, just trying to echo what Georges has said. I think we are trying currently overpaid for the security. And if you check the Ethereum POW network, what is today, like we have, including the fees, we have more than 20,000 Ether created per day as mining reward, and that means about 8 million Ethers generated per year. And compare that to other POS blockchains, including Ethereum 2.0, the Beacon chain, and we are also validating there. And but the staking reward barely pay for one of our developers, you know. So I think compared to POS and POW reward, there's perhaps 10 times the difference in terms of security. And yeah, so compared to that, I think the POW chains seriously overpaid. And I think it should be fine. I mean, trying to switch to lower the reward EIP 1.59 because you know, compare that to BTC Bitcoin halving. The manual reward of Bitcoin last May suddenly instantly reduced by half, and the ecosystem just going well, and the entire process went quite smoothly. So I don't personally worry about like the transition, the activation makes Ethereum have anything like any incident, any security issues. And I do think like the MEV will take a important role, like to replace the fee reduction. And I think once the MEV become more we are actively trying to doing the research how to make the MEV part also redistribute to our miners and our users. So I think given the reduction of the fee and the MEV part will be pretty nice additional reward after the EIP 1.9 transition.
You want to play, don't you?
Next up we have, I'm hoping that Zoom is putting this in the order of people. If it's not, someone point it out and we can put it in the right order. But I think Chris is next.
I don't believe I am, but I'll just go and we can keep going.
Okay, sure, yeah, sorry. I might just try to keep up with the list and people can correct me as I go through too. But go ahead.
Sure,
Chris.
sorry about that. So as a pool operator, of course, generally pools exist to defend their miners because miners are the ones paying us and you defend your client. So we don't feel that miners are overpaid. In the end, as you pay more miners join and the amount per miner evens out. So what we have here is a situation where EIP took a very long, EIP 1559 took a long time to come in, and now you have many more miners than there would have been had it come in earlier. So now you're stuck, and now we have a lot of miners basically all making around the same as they would have before 1559 came in. So now we have many pools that are saying they don't want to lose their miners because, again, this is a very big community and you have many people who are working here. And I know people say miners aren't workers, but we are workers. We maintain our rigs, we put money down. We're basically all small business owners. So now we have a situation where miners are all making this amount and you're proposing to cut it by 50% or more. So I've talked to miners, and it's not that we're opposed to 1559. We think it will bring several needed improvements, and there honestly needs to be even more improvement because gas is getting a bit too high.
True.
But the thing is, you're cutting our revenues with that, and honestly, we don't think we should need to cut our revenues that much, and we think the community can offer something so that the gap is not so big when you cut them. Instead of, like, we're willing to sacrifice a bit, but you're asking us to sacrifice more than half. And now you're at a situation where you have Ethermine, Spark Pool, and many other pools, and they're coming out and saying this cut is too much.
Yes.
If you look at the stop 1559, you'll see that there's only one pool representing 10% of hash rate that even supports 159 without any changes. So you're at a situation where 90% of the network is telling you, we oppose this proposal.
Okay. Next up, I think it's Aftab, James, Tim, Roger, Micah, and then Georgia. So let's go Aftab next.
Thanks, Hudson. And I want to start off just in response to what we just heard from Chris. And I totally understand the concern around the gap in the issuance, but I also want to reiterate that within a couple of years that gap is going to zero, or you know what I mean. When we move to proof of stake, all of mining will be lost, and we do want the network to be secure in that time, but there's only so far that we can indulge proposals like that when in fact the goal is eventually to move beyond proof of work. So that's the first point. And I want to address Michael's point from earlier, comparing this to other issuance reductions in the past. And I certainly see the point there, but I think this is not equivalent to those kinds of changes. This is a coherent policy change that's designed to create greater certainty around Ether supply. And within the market, especially among larger funds and investors, one of the points that they've expressed concern around for Ether is that there is greater supply uncertainty versus Bitcoin. And we'll never really be able to address that, most likely, because I don't think there will ever be support for a true hard cap in Ethereum. But this certainly helps to alleviate some of those concerns, because as long as Ethereum is a very widely used network and
yeah, right. No one
is implemented, that will help to keep supply in check, and it will either reduce net circulating supply.
Thank you, Orange Army.
Or it will basically limit the growth of that. So I just wanted to put those points out there.
And he's looking at it from an investor standpoint. So from the investor standpoint, giving a standardization in the fees, he's all for it. Even I'm cool with the standardization of fees. But his point is trying to start making it a little deflationary at the same time, even though he acknowledges that there will never be a supply cap. So there will, even when they go to proof of stake, there'll still be supply issuance. They still have to pay the stakers to keep their nodes up and running, and it's going to be based off of it. You know, some people, if you don't know, it's gonna you're going to stake 32 ETH, whatever the price is at that point. I don't think that the fee structure burn system is going to be of any insignificance, other than to it hurts the miners in the long run, versus they still get the fees on staking side. So they need to do it to both sides first. This way everybody's playing by the same rules. To dictate who plays by what rules versus another shows centralization, so I have an issue with that aspect. If that's the route that Ethereum's going to go down with this, it should be something that they wipe out across the board. All fees get burned. But even so, I don't think that it should be hit to the point where you're taking more than a 50% reduction in pay. You can't compare that to Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form, because Bitcoin only does it halvening. And yes, when Bitcoin does its halvening, does it really hurt the network? No. The network, it tends to grow over time from each halvening. But it's also being done on a way that everybody knows, and it's predictable. EIP 1559 is not being predictable. It was an improvement that someone's like, hey, we're paying too much for security. We need to pay a little less. But in the mechanic realm, this is my viewpoint. You know, cheap work isn't good. Good work isn't cheap. And it's my philosophy with mining too. You know, good security in a network is not cheap. Cheap security on a network will allow you to have a 51% attack. I'm just saying.
Okay, thank you. Also, we're gonna just have no more hands up until after Q&A because we only have a limited amount of time left. So no one else put your hands up until after I start Q&A, and then we'll start doing that. Doesn't mean take them down if you already have them up necessarily, but I think I have the order still. Next up, I think we have James.
Yep, I wanted to address the point of like giving a lead time, or that miners need to be able to prepare for this change, and that this is something that's been in the works publicly for a long time. Even if today you are learning about it, you have at least 4 months to plan, and the last 3 months have been pretty heated discussion, or a lot of discussion among the community. And the first part was like 2 years ago, we did an implementation study with Vulcanize Ricked, and then that happened. And then last March, even we started development like significantly again a year ago with a GitHub grants request, where we ended up pulling the largest amount of grants that I think had happened up to that point, like over 60 grand. And we restarted development at that time, and then we were saying it's probably 1 to 2 years before this comes in, and here we are at like a year and a half, and it's getting close. So there's been plenty of, I feel, public discussion and development of it coming soon.
Okay, Tim.
Just 2 quick points. I guess the first, this going a bit far about the A6 versus GPU discussion, but it's worth noting that, with regards to the point of like A6 centralizing the network, there's already been several options brought up about, things that Ethereum could do if this became a problem. ProgPow is obviously a big one. 969 was brought up on this call. So I do think we are in a spot where it's like ASICs are not a dominant part of the network today. If they became one and that caused a threat, I think we have like a lot of approaches we can take to deal with that. And then the second point I just want to make is with regards to the idea that like, yes, miners are small businesses and there's more miners that came in. I think this is, something I want to just stress to like the mining community, that making, profitability assumptions based on historically high transaction fees, historically high Ethereum to US dollar prices, and relatively low hash rate growth because of a GPU shortage. It's, you're basically buying the top and you're coming in at like the peak of the bull market. It is an extremely risky business decision, and, miners should be aware of that. It's also worth noting that, the difficulty will adjust up and eat, most excess profits in mining over time. And that 1559 is not the only thing that can impact the fees that miners receive from transactions. So for example, there's a lot of talk about, the high gas costs right now and moving to layer 2. If there is a mass move of, say, most of DeFi to layer 2, the fees on the main chain will drop considerably, and that'll have a similar impact on miners' profitability. So TLDR is, it feels like it is a very frothy environment for mining. And yes, if we put 1559 through, or if we alleviate the congestion on mainnet with L2, mining rewards will drop significantly, and that will kick a lot of miners who are only profitable at kind of the, most profitable period in mining off the network. And that's kind of, by design. If we are overpaying and we lower that amount, then it becomes unprofitable, and then the miners who stay on have a lower difficulty to compete with, and they can be profitable in that context. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
And he does bring up a good point with that. I will agree with that. If everybody moved, if all the protocols moved to layer 2, it would hugely impact all the miners on layer 1. But you will see the gas transfer on the layer 2. So again, it's not really solving the end user experience, even if they don't implement a EIP 1559, or let's say they do implement 1559, and at the same time everybody switches over to layer 2, do, that the layer 2 people are going to start getting all those fees because, they're not, well, if they're burning them, then they would have to be doing it for both sides. So you won't really see too much going on for the stakers because there's nothing really being built on the staking side, so you're not really seeing huge fees on there. But if all these other things come up over there and the stakers get the taste of the fee structure, they're going to be having the same heated discussion with the stakers about all of this. So I think they need to make just like a standardization so that it's fair. Burn a portion of it, whatever, but you should be giving some of that to incentivize the miners. That's just me.
Thank you. And then finally, Roger, before we move on to Q&A.
Oh, hi, yes. I just want to repeat again that we do support the 1559, albeit that we felt that it could be a little bit moderated in terms of the reduction. And another comment is that the reason why the ASICs has not really taken over like the Bitcoin BTC is because by design the Ethereum is a memory hard, which means it relies on memory bandwidth, and the ASICs does not have that much advantage over GPUs in terms of memory bandwidth. And a third comment is that because of things like Quark POW, Quark Power, and also the EIP 969, it's forcing us, like the ASIC manufacturers, to actually start thinking about putting GPU cores inside our ASIC in order to make us look more like a GPU and ASIC, like a hybrid. So to overcome that obstacle. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Roger.
And that's actually an interesting one there too, because if the ASIC manufacturers switch over and they're basically making their own version of a GPU hybrid, that's something that I would be interested in. But if they're moving over to staking, then there's just no point on them putting that kind of investment in there, unless he knows when they're switching over and he thinks he can get a return on investment on his research and development side of it, being that he's the one of the he's the CTO of Silicon. So that'd be interesting if he comes out with something like that, or if that's what the A11 is it's a simulated VGA core and no longer just an SoC chip. Be interesting.
Next up, we're going to go to Q&A. We have some questions from YouTube, Discord, and Reddit. Discord and Reddit questions were taken in the previous days via the Ethereum Cat Herders request for comments. First one, when does 1559 come into effect if it does pass, the core devs and it's decided that it's going into a hard fork? What's the timeline for that if that does happen? And I guess probably Tim or James is the best one to answer this.
Sure, I can take a quick stab at it. So on the next Alcore Dev call, which is next Friday, we're going to discuss whether we want to include 1559 in the next upgrade, which should go live sometime this summer in, call it July or August on mainnet. So if it gets accepted by the core developers, comments kind of went on about that process at the beginning of the call, then it would go live on mainnet around say July, just to be safe.
Okay, thank you.
And a little point on that is that London will happen in July no matter what.
And John Harris.
London.
John Harris, the A11's the $25,000 to $30,000 ASIC.
London will happen because
I didn't
of the
miss your question.
No
I see it there.
But whether or not it includes soon after EIP 1559 or 1559 it's in London is independent of that.
Got it. I thought you were setting a date for London, and I was about to be like, wait. Okay, anyways.
No, the Ice Age is coming, and we for sure have to address that.
Yes. That is correct. Regardless of if 1559 goes in, we're addressing the Ice Age with London. Actually, that first question, when it would come into effect, was Fritz1818 from Reddit. This next question is from Bitcoin root user in Reddit. I would like to hear how burning 0.0001% of the supply every day will make the price rise enough to make up for 50% reduction in profits.
I can look into that, some of that stuff for you, Orange Army.
Further centralize Ethereum as it'll impact hobbyist miners significantly more than larger farms who negotiated lower.
Yeah, right, Red. For sure.
Yeah. So I see some hands raised. If you don't want to respond to this, put your hand down. Otherwise, we will let someone respond to this. And actually, so yeah, who had their hand up first? Someone just speak up.
Just roll a die.
All right, let's do Thomas. I saw his hand go up newest.
Yes, so I think that the argument of
Thank you, Jimbo. Thank you.
pricing being affected by the change of issuance, we're not saying it's true or not. It seems that it will be affected, obviously, because even if it's a small number, you have to discount all the future payouts. And also, we've seen recently that with the high gas prices, the transaction fees actually amounts to a significant part of the payments to miners, right? So if you burn all of that, that becomes significant. But still, this is not the goal of the EIP 1559. EIP 1559 answers the problems of the short-term predictability of the prices and better user experience in picking the right payment for the transaction in any given time, and allowing the demanded supply to be floating a bit more freely around that short-term demand shifts. So when you have sudden spikes due to some events in the network will be able to accommodate to that. Also by expanding the blocks in the short term. So you may also see more supply when it's most needed. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. We're going to have Roger, then Tim, then Michael. Roger, feel free. Do we have Roger here? You're muted if you're speaking.
Hi. Yeah, I think I already made my statement. So you can move to the next person. Let me lower my hand.
No problem. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is relatively good point with the amount of total issuance that's already out there and then how much is actually going to get burned. I think it's more, this is going to be me putting on a marketing hat and kind of tapping my old Anheuser-Busch experience. I think the messaging that comes with
no problem, John Harris.
When it's a heavy transaction time, let's say the last couple days we had 12 to 25 coin per block happening. There's a huge message that's going to happen with that when you start seeing that much being burned, when you have the typical block reward inflation being at 2, but then you burn 25. There's a huge amount in that particular transaction that I think the messaging, the bots that'll be on Twitter, the feedback loop from the investment, folks that are vested long on Ethereum are going to, use that to an advantage on a messaging. And that's not necessarily bad for miners too. Like, don't get me wrong that it's not all about yield and price. Any action that has that influence, if price goes up exponentially, even if yields go down, it's just a math problem. Either one swings. Right now we have both, right? We have price growth and we have yield growth, which is creating this rolling wave of new miners. If yields come down, but then they're being burned, that messaging I think that will come out as showing, $9, $10, $12 million a day being burned on heavy transaction times. Now that's still not really fixing the user experience if that's what's still occurring. If we have huge amounts of transactions happening, it's costing the user a lot. But I think the messaging on the supply will be far outweigh the realities of the supply, even if it's going in a downward motion because of the amount of inflation over years and stuff.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to ask, this is the last question, so you can respond to whatever questions you wanted, but I assume that this next and final question
I would
also
actually,
be like,
I mean, I would have a just an addition to what Michael said, because this is a big thing that happened in Ethereum a few days ago, right? There was this one transaction that actually had 25 ETH block reward to miners. That is the transaction that Michael addressed. And I just want to briefly say that in this transaction, so the fees were that high because there were liquidation bots competing to liquidate positions on Compound. Okay, so in this block, about 2 ETH of subsidy would have gone to miners, and about, let's say, 19 to 21 from the fees would have also gone to miners, because that is an MEV transaction, and only 2 to 3 ETH would have been burned in congestion fees. So that is actually a prime example of what part of a transaction is affected by EIP 1559 and what isn't. So to reiterate, most of this transaction would have still gone to miners, like way over 90% of it.
So this actually brings me to the last question, which is an MEV related question. Someone asked, let me actually see who that was. Oh, I lost it. Anyways, why not stop MEV altogether via protocol level provable transaction shuffling? MEV is the reason of the bad UX, and high tips will cause the same problem, is what someone said. And yeah, so who has a response to that? I think I saw Rick, Micah, and Georgios raise their hand. Rick, go ahead.
I'd just like to point out that that's exceptionally difficult. So the way that the EVM is designed today, and the way that the whole system works today, many of us, myself included, some other people in this group, would love to be able to wave a wand and have it work the way that's described in that question. But just from an engineering effort, it's exceptionally difficult to achieve that without, basically creating a whole new system.
Georgios?
Yeah, like to echo basically what Rick said, the problem comes from the fact that ordering and execution are kind of like both in the hands of the miners. And if there was a way to separate that, then sure. But doing this kind of separation is very hard, and it would require us to use like fancy cryptography, and we have no idea how to do that reliably today, while also letting users express their fee preferences. So the answer is yes, we can do it, but nobody knows how to do it well yet. So it's not something that we can answer fully today.
And you know what? We have an extra couple minutes. There's a really good question that Pooja put in chat from Crackling Ice and YouTube. Have fees been modeled based on how full the block is? What is the potential for reduction in fees? I think some of you have done analysis and research on this. Does anyone have any comments? Well, we can start with Rick, then Thomas. Or Rick, is your hand just still up from earlier? Okay, Thomas, and then Barnaby, if you want to chime in too. I know you had some extensive stuff on there.
Yeah, so I'll leave the research part to Barnaby, but yes, EIP 1559, at least in short term, it's all about this, about adjusting fees based on the how full the block is. As for what's the potential of decreasing the fees, all the research says that EIP 1559 generally does not decrease the long-term fees. This is only driven by the supply and demand on the block space. So maybe the part where the block is bigger because of EIP 1559, which is a bit of accompanying change, will decrease the fees. But Barnaby will probably give more details.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Hudson. Thanks for the chat so far. It's correct that EIP 1559 doesn't address the supply and demand issue that gives rise to the high fees that we see. That would be better done by scalability, ETH2, all of this. But it's also important to keep in mind that another issue that we observe is the fees within a single block are very widely distributed. The variance of the fees is very high. So you have this basic uncertainty on how much you're supposed to pay. And you are also referring to oracles that tell you how much people have paid recently. And so you can create these kinds of bubbles where everybody is just overpaying continuously. And EIP 1559 by its design really breaks this cycle and tells, well, actually no, this is objectively what the congestion price currently is, because that's what EIP 1559 is. It's a congestion pricing mechanism. It's also why MEV is out of the burning, let's say, it's out of range for this mechanism, because MEV isn't specifically congestion. What we really mean is that users want to use the chain, and it's not really about position, it's just about inclusion. And this is why EIP 1559 works the way it does. And this is why base fee targets the congestion, and this is why congestion is actually not due to anyone, or if it is due to anyone, it's rather due to the users or the transactors who pay the price of congestion.
Okay, thank you, Barnaby. I think what we'll do now, we have 9 minutes left and we have a handful of participants. We might just go to closing. What do you think, Pooja?
I think there was one question that is coming up related to hash rate and related to 51% attack. If somebody can talk about that.
Yeah, Micah said he can, if you want to read the question.
So the question is, if you put off 40 to 50% of hash rate and it comes back to 51% attack like we had in ETC, what will happen with ETH price once you have lost security of network?
So I can talk about the attacks. I am not a price speculator, so I won't try to speculate on the impact it would have on the price. So if 50% of the hash rate suddenly decides to all move to nice hash, for example, and I think this is what Michael is getting at. If half the hash rate moves to nice hash, it creates an opportunity where someone can rent enough hash power to do a 51% attack. There's a number of them out there that you can do. And then with that, they do something bad. The reason this is particularly dangerous compared to other types of 51% attacks is because the people who are executing the attack have no long-term commitments. Whereas someone who's running a mining farm, for example, they have long-term commitments. Like if they burn down Ethereum, they burn down their own mining farm. So if they spent $1 billion on a mining farm and Ethereum goes to zero because they attack the network, then they lose that $1 billion investment because there's nothing else they can do with it. And so this is a very serious attack. Like if 50% of hash rate goes to nice hash, that is very dangerous for Ethereum. Like we should be worried and we should take immediate action to deal with it, because that is a very, very bad situation, because you can rent like, an hour for 100K and do very bad things. So that being said, whether we hit 50% on nice hash or not is a speculative question that, again, I'm not going to speculate on where hash rate's going to go, but it is real attack. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think it is likely for 51% of hash rate to show up on nice hash tomorrow? And then on top of that, you have to ask, would it show up all at once, or would it show up kind of incrementally? If it shows up incrementally, coordinators have an opportunity to do something about it. Like they can increase the block reward or do these other things we've been talking about to try to stop the hash power from moving to nice hash. So these are just things to think about when people are thinking about these attack vectors, is that like they're dangerous, but just keep in mind, how likely are they and how fast will they happen? Can we respond? Can we act quickly? Stuff like that.
In the essence of time, I'll give Michael 30 seconds and Thomas 30 seconds.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hit it already, Micah. The main piece that I'm tracking with it is that we're in a different time than we were 2 years ago. And even with the rolling wave of, possibly doing this in June.
Khalid, it was a little earlier. It's over now.
If that comes off,
this is like the very tail end of it
people
now.
People that are investing in that are going to be looking on how to where the money's coming from. If there's a play for a competitive network, not saying calling any networks out that somebody would do that, but somebody that's long in that position has every incentive in the world to have to create an issue for Ethereum. And this isn't theoretical things. This has happened to several other networks. Pretty much almost every proof of work, large proof of work mining network out there. So I'm trying to ensure that people are taking it seriously, and then I think mathematically we can keep track of where things are at and how big of an impact it's going to be if this is put in June or July. where we're at in the stack, and if a block reward or something like that needs to be adjusted to lessen the risk. And that's all I'm looking for.
Okay, we're going to have Thomas take 30 seconds to respond to the question, and then each person on the chat is going to get 30 seconds or less to give just final statements on their position or whatever they want to say. If they want to shill anything, I don't care. And then we'll close out with Pooja and myself, and that'll be it. So, Thomas, go ahead.
The amount of research.
Yes,
testing,
I believe so,
and discussion
Crypto,
that we bring in here,
Bedell.
the amount of tooling that we build, both in the space of protocol engineering and DeFi, just shows that we do understand the importance of these risks, and we do monitor it, and it's nothing that is not being looked at and not being treated with proper consideration. So we have those tools, we do look at it, we understand those numbers, and we listen to you also raising those concerns. Sorry, I do.
Okay, no problem. All right, let's go through the list. I'll call your name, and then you have 30 seconds or less. AFTAB.
Thanks, Hudson. I just want to close with the thought that from the discussions that I've had with folks, the user and app community are strongly in favor of EIP 1559, and it represents a profound improvement to user experience by providing reasonable guarantees of transaction inclusion, both for new and experienced users, and it creates conditions for economically hardening Ether, which I think will be very important for the long-term success of Ethereum and its security as a proof-of-stake network.
Okay, next up we have Barnaby.
Yeah, just want to close saying the discussion was really amazing, and I do support the EIP 1559 for the improvement that it will bring. I really do believe that will make the experience much more better for users, not only for users, but also it's been discussed for rollups. So the architecture of Ethereum in the future definitely needs 1559 to keep going and to be modern and to keep up.
Okay, Georgios?
Yeah, so firstly, I want to point out a main takeaway from this discussion for miners, based on the stuff that we've said, that MEV drastically changes the landscape. The fee revenue that you would lose is much lower than you think or have calculated and so on. And that I want to rehash the fact that miners are long Ethereum and the Ethereum economy, and as the Ethereum economy pie grows, so will your revenue. So you should consider the option which grows the Ethereum economy and not be myopic about the situation. Thank you.
Rick?
Yeah, I want to say something a little mild.
James, you're like, what do you think the impact will be if 90% of the pools don't support the EIP 1559 if it goes live? Either we're going to get a hard fork of the network, or everybody's just going to fall in line. It's really, for me, it's hard to say. I'm thinking that I think that everybody, the network will all kind of go along with it and do the upgrade because they all want to stay on Ethereum. So with that being said, it's going to be from the miners' perspective, what happens if a lot of the miners come off of Ethereum. How secure will it be for them paying for such cheap security? So yeah, I mean, you would have, I mean, that's what happened to Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. That's the hard fork. So Ethereum Classic decided to say, hey, look, the DAO hack wasn't our fault. Our code wasn't the problem. It was their implementation of the contract. They wrote their contract wrong. Why are we bailing them out, in a sense? And that's where you got, Ethereum Classic. So now what? If the mining community don't believe in it, they're gonna fork it basically, and you'll have what? don't even know what to call it. EIP, what Ethereum 1, and then you'll have Ethereum 2, whatever it may be. But yeah, if they don't, it will basically fork the because you'll have people mining on the old chain as the new chain continues on under a new protocol. ETC 2.0. Right? Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So these guys are basically just sitting here chit-chatting now right before they get up off of here. I'm figuring that's what I'm gonna do. I've been streaming this for over 2 hours now. Got 24 of you awesome people in here. Only 20 likes, guys. Go ahead and smash that Lizzy like button. Subscribe if you're new here, please. That would help me out. And hit the little bell notification. All these things help me out a little bit with that YouTube algorithm for recommending to new people, guys. That always kind of helps me out for sure. Yeah, thank you, Jimbo. Thank you. It's kind of what I do it for, just to kind of get good knowledge out there to all of you awesome people. Certainly, share this on your favorite social media. Helps me get the outreach to new people also, if you'd be so kind. Otherwise, does anybody have any questions for me before I hit up out of here? I see one from Orange Army. He's like, we need more info on the MEV and the flash bots. It's just how like the gas fees. So the gas fee is really high, and then you have bots out there that are just doing arbitrage, on the network, going to all these different coins and seeing where that they can execute trades, and these bots are executing so many trades that the bots are pumping the gas fees up to get to execute trades instantly. With this being said, it's making the base fee more to be able to get your payments included, which means that for somebody who's like, oh, I just need to send this over here, so send some Ethereum over here so I can pay for this, whatever X is. Now they're sending out $10 worth of Ethereum, and they're getting charged $5, $6. So more than half of what they're sending is in fees now. That's a horrible user experience. It makes it to where you can't use it as a exchange value. Where Bitcoin's supposed to be a holding value, Ethereum wants to be that exchange value. So I'm going to exchange Ethereum for goods and services. So if we can sit there and standardize that a little bit for the user side, that helps out. But they're going one step further and going, well, if we're going to standardize it, we might as well just burn it, because as soon as Ethereum 2.0 comes out, the miners aren't going to get anything from us, so it doesn't really matter. That's a really bad way of looking at it, too, trying to combat some of this stuff, because you're just going to get a lot of the miners that'll actually just leave the network. That will leave it vulnerable, I believe it, from the mining standpoint, for that, unless they're going to roll out ETH 2.0 faster. But like they were saying, it would require a lot of developers to implement ETH 2.0 for their tokens that they already have, which means that a lot of the developers that are on top of Ethereum need to switch to layer 2, which that's not happening quite yet. I have no idea why, though. What up, M3G4? Or the King, whatever. I don't know. Hi, mining lovers. Got a baguette here. Nice. I hope it's delicious. So does anybody else have any other questions before I hop off of here? Anything else? We got somebody talking about a baguette. Kind of making me hungry. I think I want to eat some food. That sounds good. And I got my 2 playful cats out here. That'll be either if they're broadcasting live, I will be doing another live stream with them. Big Rome, what's up? What's up? Next time you back on, huh? I'm gonna start trying to do more live streams during the week. We're gonna see how everything goes. I'm just trying to get. It's like I'm trying to enjoy some of the last little bit of snow that we got here. It's been warm, so I've got my snowmobile running. So it's like, man, I've been doing a lot of snowmobiling, trying to get it in, you know. And then, you know, had me a hell of a scare last night on my snowmobile. A little off topic here. So it's like 6:30 at night. I've got one lake to cross before getting home, and I'm crossing it, and the fucker runs out of gas. Yeah, it was the top layer of the lake is all slush. You're like, oh my god, don't let me fall through. I gotta walk off and then go back to my sled, gas it up, and take off back to shore. By the time I got back to my sled was in the slush on the lake, a good 6 inches. So it sank up half a foot into the lake while I was walking back to my house to grab a gas can to get some gas and bring it back to my sled. Fun times. Rodolfo, you're a new person here. Welcome. How much do you think profits will drop under EIP 1559 on average? Well, so as of right now, Ethereum is a 2-block reward. So it'll be, if Ice Age doesn't implement, which that'll be like July-ish, with the London hard fork, it should be 2 Ethereum. Gets spread out every coin. Every block reward is just 2 Ethereum. So if you're used to seeing, you know, let's say 4 Ethereum because of the 2, because of the gas fees, then you're talking a 50% reduction. I mean, it kind of depends on when you got into mining too. But if you're newer to mining and you're just getting in now and you're seeing 6, 10 ETH block rewards, then you're going to see more than a 50% reduction as a new miner. Which means that if you got a whole bunch of new equipment that you've basically just recently bought, your ROI time on that, I mean, to me, ROI is a bunch of bullshit anyway. Return on investment. You don't get a return on investment until you sell it off. On the equipment side, after that, it's the price of doing business. You got to spend a little bit of money to invest into your business. AE mining is a business, but you know, you can be talking anywhere from 50% or more of a reduction, depending on volume of the block transactions. That's why a lot of the mining community is up in an uproar, is that they're taking away the gas fee. Granted, the gas fee is pretty high right now because of the bots wash trading on there, but yeah. Kuzumi, no, they did not talk about that. They're going to be discussing this next Friday. So this was the Cat Herders. Next Friday will be the the Ethereum core devs, and I'm going to try to be able to broadcast that live here next Friday. So I will find out when that will be, and try to get that information out to all you guys. The averagers, the gas fees will cap out at 20% of the transaction fee. So you're going to be, you'll still have a gas fee on there. Thank you, Rodolfo. The gas fees will still be there. I mean, during a high block reward, during high volume times, you'll have up to 20%. If they make the block size bigger, or they redo how they do the block headers, so that they can package more into each block. This will alleviate some of the higher end gas fees, theoretically. If you can fit more into each block, you shouldn't. It's like whenever the block is full, that high gas fee is to kind of discourage you from doing a transaction right now. It's telling you to, hey, wait, hold off. It'll come down, but we're experiencing high volume load. And if you want it through right now, you're going to pay some cheddar. This way, if they reorchestrate how the block headers are, or they make the blocks bigger, you're not really filling up the blocks anymore. Is this going to be an issue? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think it'll solve anything if they have a huge boom cycle again on all the dApps that are built on on Ethereum. Like Sushi Swap. And all the other, all those swap coins, high volume, you're going to see all the same issues. So I don't think in the long run that it's really going to solve anything. It's just going to make it more predictable, and I'm cool with that. Make it predictable, but to just fee burn just because you want to see your investment go up, you're basically telling the devs that, hey, we're gambling over here. We would like to gamble a little bit more and burn these fees and see if it increases the price, because I want to make more money. To me, it just sounds more like a money play at that point, instead of rewarding the miners or rewarding the stakers for having their investment. And the stakers are going to have a bigger investment because they're locked in. So that's where my viewpoint is that if you're sitting there and you're locking in 32 ETH, and it's $2,000 a coin or $10,000 a coin. Let's say it's $10,000 a coin. You're now talking $320,000 investment into Ethereum. Whatever it may be. That's a big commitment, and you have a contract with them that you're staking. The rewards should be significant for those people. Just like the mining facilities that are supporting Ethereum. If you want good security, you should be paying a premium. Security premiums it's what helps Bitcoin. It's what helps Ethereum right now. We're going to see how this is going to work out in the long run. Kozumi, that's actually a good question too. Is it the right time to buy a new rig, or should you wait for more news? Yo, what's up, Dan the Dane? Kazumi, that answer for me goes into a couple of different categories. If you're a hobby miner and you're wanting to help support the network, then just try to find reasonably priced hardware. Right now, you're paying a premium. It's hard to get your hands on any equipment. Everything's being scalped. Mining is at an all-time high right now. So it's, for me, it's more time to it's a great market for the sellers, bad market for anybody who's a consumer. So have I been buying in this bull run? Yes, I've been buying equipment as much as I can get my hands on, but I have a pretty significant farm. My farm pays for everything. So, you know, it's like, I mean, me, myself, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's definitely a decision you need to make for yourself. I buy, I'll continue to buy, I'll continue to grow my farm. I believe in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. I want to open up a whole mining facility. The Family Mine LLC is a real thing. I would like to get to a point where I've got a building and a shit ton of miners. So that's that. I'm long on the ecosystem. So if you're long on the ecosystem too, it might be a good time, as long as your budget can handle it. Because, you know, you're paying $100 to $200, $500 over MSRP. You know, the King, no, EIP is only for ETH. It's not part of ETC. ETC is a whole nother situation. And I've always been a supporter of ETC's network. It's just too bad that there's no nobody building anything on ETC. That's the only thing I think is bad. So does anybody else got any other questions for me? And Kuzumi, I hope I'm like answering. I mean, I know I'm kind of vague about it, but you know, if you wanted to wait for the news and see, I mean, here's another one, Kuzumi, for waiting for the news. So if you wanted to take the approach, hey, I'm going to wait for the news, and let's say they next week they decide that they're going to implement it in July with the EIP 1559. And, you know, maybe in July, when all these people that have been mining more recently go, oh my God, I'm no longer profitable, I need to turn my rigs off, time to sell. You might have an opportunity to buy equipment here come closer to July. So that's kind of an interesting look on it too, that I was just kind of thinking now, you know, we might see the availability of hardware. We might actually see hardware come down in price. That would be amazing. Or, you know, we won't see anything, any change. Everybody will just switch over to a different network because they find another network that was more profitable now and they can still sustain themselves. It's hard to say. Hard to say. And yo, what's going on, Dan to Dane? I've been doing great. Right now, no. Absolutely not. With the gas fee structure the way it is right now, Ethereum is the absolute most profitable coin out there. That's why the hash rate on Ethereum has been going up. That's why all these ASIC mining miners are coming on board onto Ethereum, because they see money. There is a lot of money to be made here. So right now, no. But if they implement the EIP 1559, and in July they're going to be implementing the London hard fork, and the London hard fork will basically implement the Ice Age, which will cut down the transmission rate of Ethereum also. I think it goes down to like 1.5 ETH or something like that, or 1.25 ETH. So at that point in time, hard to say what will be more profitable than ETH then. Yeah, that would be interesting to see all the miners go over to ETC. That would be a really big. That would help out ETC a lot. I don't know if it would drive an innovation over there. It would be nice to see some of the developers that are on Ethereum go over to Ethereum Classic. That to me would be a bigger step. Let stuff get built off of it, because they all the developers followed Vitalik and his team. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna head up out of here. Ravencoin is not bad. If everybody were to go flying over to Ravencoin, Ravencoin would have to be between 40 and 50 cents a coin for them to be able to absorb the hash rate. Conflux, I thought that there were some issues with Conflux. I'd have to look more into it, but I believe there was an issue with Conflux. Any other questions? And for sure, Kuzami or Kazumi. So if nobody's got any other questions, have a nice day. Go go riding onto some snow. Oh yes. I'm gonna try to see if I can take a picture of where my sled got stuck last night, to see how badly I was like breaking through the ice right there. Nope, I covered it. All right, guys. Definitely for all of you new people, definitely smash that Lizzie like button, subscribe. Hit the little bell notification so you know whenever I go live, and all that good stuff. If you enjoy this content and know anybody else that might benefit from some of this content, definitely send them my way. With the community of people that I'm with, the community is amazing. So yeah, definitely be a part of it. You'll learn a lot being here. If you got any questions after the video, certainly drop your questions in down below. I usually respond to all of it, except when somebody does like a sub bombing on me. Then there's just so many comments I can't get through them all. You're talking like 200 comments. I try to go through and at least like them all. And if anybody like in that sub bombing like will make an interesting comment, I'll usually respond back to it. But certainly after this video, if you think of any questions whatsoever, certainly drop them in down below, or if you'd like to, down below I have links to the Family Mind Discord. Certainly hop in, and we can sit there and further take this discussion, and get into a group chat or whatever, and go from there. And Yep, I got some pretty big, I got some stuff that I'm going to be implementing on this channel to kind of get some more content rolling out on it. Stuff like this and, mining focused stuff like that, because that's my big focus is mining, hash rate, all that good stuff. Hopefully I'll be getting a few more 3080s here soon, and like I'm hoping this week. Fingers crossed, guys. Fingers crossed this next week I get graphics cards. I'm hoping. And with that all, I will definitely see you all on the next one, guys. So, peace.